Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It's Monday, January 22nd, 2018. My name is Michael Brooks on a Michael Monday, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On today's program, investigative journalist, writer, author Corey Pein on the war against immigrants, the government shutdown, the Dreamers, what the war against immigrants looks like on the ground. He's been covering it in depth. All that and more with Corey Pein. Plus, the shutdown continues. A group of so-called moderates from both parties contemplating a Lucy and the football strategy for temporary government funding in response for a verbal assurance about a vote on immigration. It's still unclear what Trump actually wants. He says completely different things, apparently, depending on the meaning. Hardliners holding steadfast, not only in terms of disenfranchising people like the Dreamers, but actually imposing even harsher systemic policies to immigration writ large. Mike Pence, he went to Jerusalem. Arab-Israeli members of parliament left. They don't like the formal support of apartheid. We'll get to that. Mike Pompeo, the CIA director, is bragging about how much more the CIA is doing during this administration. That on the tails of many Democrats voting along with almost all Republicans to continue giving the president massive spying powers. And we have some real deep insight from Fox News on why people don't take pride in being servants anymore. And of course, there's a new Republican ad suggesting that Democrats are complicit in murder because they don't support constructing a wall. Everybody's having their typical response to this. Republicans bulldozing ahead, other people reaching for their smelling salts, and Chuck Schumer going, well, that's right, because illegal immigrants who kill swine are my brothers. He didn't actually say that. And apparently, Donald Trump has a killer impersonation of Narendra Modi, India's prime minister. I am going to have an enormous amount of fun with that on the fun half of today's Majority Report. All that and more ahead. How's everybody doing? Brendan, Matt?
I'm doing well.
It's a marvelous Monday.
It's a well, it did. The feeling came back to our bodies over this past weekend because the weather returned to like not being totally like you walked outside and the weather's just like, what? Kill you. One of the things about Fox News is that in addition to supposedly being propaganda for their heartland and this whole weird scam that they have about being like the voice of middle America with a bunch of multimillionaires in a studio in Midtown Manhattan, is they also have this sort of like New York scumbag network. And what I mean by the New York scumbag network is that occasionally they like to have people on like, I don't know, like a former police detective. And they'll be like, you know, this guy in 1998, like abused more Dominicans on his beat than anybody else. And now he's here to talk about Al-Qaeda or something like that. Or a guy like Bo Dietl. Remember they used to have Bo Dietl on all the time? Bo Dietl is a private detective. He ran a kind of embarrassing campaign for mayor last time. Not kind of, it was embarrassing. And they get somebody like that on who, again, they probably just met him at a steakhouse somewhere or Maybe Bo Dietl helped them with some type of private detective work, as an example, because, of course, he was a private detective after he was a cop. And they're like, hey, this guy's a New York scumbag. He can come on and, you know, talk about terrorism or something, or why we need to, like, you know, stack Muslims up into human pyramids in the Middle East. I mean, just as good as anybody. And in the context of, I think this is basically immigration debate, but also a broader sense of another favorite Fox News subject, which is entitlement. They love talking about entitlement when it involves, like, millennials to, like, you know, getting paid for work or something. That's very entitled. Never, I haven't seen a segment on Wyatt Koch yet and entitlement. But this is Willie Deagle, who is a new member, as far as I understand, of the Fox News New York Scumbag Network, the mini plutocrat man on the street. He's a restaurant owner. He owns, what is it called? Uncle Jack's Steakhouse. Just take a look at this scumbag and just listen to this segment. He's talking about wage increases and entitlement. And let me just tell you up front, I'm absolutely going to do a stereotypical Italian impression after this.
Let's talk to Willie Deagle. He owns 5 restaurants in New York City as the CEO of Uncle.
I'm sorry. If you're listening to this, like, he already has. First of all, he's totally overdressed for this segment. He looks like he's auditioning for, like, a guy who's, like, gonna kill a prostitute in Boardwalk Empire or something. It looks like a 1940s gangster outfit, and his eyes are literally like, he looked like he just spent an evening trying to, like, skirt federal and local labor laws, and then did, like, a mountain of cocaine to come over to Fox News and explain why the minimum wage is bad. Okay, go ahead.
City as the CEO of Uncle Jack's Steakhouse. Good morning to you.
Hi, how you, everybody?
Okay, so when the government forces you to do it, what happens?
Well, they think you're going to pass it right on to the consumer. But if I try to raise prices, I'm doing less guests, and they're getting insulted and they're not coming. They're not educated. They don't understand what's happening.
So if they're not coming, nobody's getting paid.
I do less business, so you have to react. So I had busboys before. I cut them 2 years ago when the minimum wage for tipped employees went from $5 to $7.50. So I used to have a captain, waiter, busboy. Now I only have a captain and waiter.
So they have to do more work, but it's hard to find really good people, right?
Well, in the industry, yes. Today, it's always harder. The way of wait staff is different. They used to be servants. When I first opened years ago, people took great pride in being a servant. Today, they have a more sense of entitlement. But I'm building people. The younger people just need to, they're not used to working. They're starting later. They're going to school, and then they don't want to work.
That's the last segment we just did.
Yeah, and it's tough because you meet someone who's 23 years old, and they never really had a job.
So here's the thing, Willie.
So I don't know about you, but I have not been to, like, any restaurant or cafe, basically anywhere in New York, where somebody looks like they don't know how to work. Everybody in these jobs looks incredibly, like, either on point or honestly just totally stressed, because working these jobs takes a tremendous amount of energy and effort. You know, I can't speak to his personal experience as a owner of Uncle Jack's Steakhouse. I know all of the numbers that we know of belie the fact that increasing wages leads to job losses. But it's obviously not really the point, you know, to play these kind of, like, fact check games with these people. This guy has his narrative and he's sticking to it. I don't know what entitlement means. Entitlement might mean, like, it was like a joke. You used to be able to check the girls' panties. Like, hey, did you steal anything? And they go, no, I didn't steal nothing, boss. It was a fucking joke. But now they're so entitled.
My guess is entitlement is, like, being able to live within, like, an hour of the place that you have to commute to work at and get more than, like below poverty wages.
Hey, if I have pneumonia, can I skip a day of work? And is it possible that this, along with the other job that I'm working full time, can pay for some of my basic necessities? And can you not scream in my face a variety of, like, expletives while I'm bringing some goober steak?
I think
that might be that sort of thing that people feel entitled to.
Another thing I think they cut down on is copywriters, because As Brennan was pointing out before the show when we looked at his website.
He has a website called Uncle Jack's, the best steakhouse in New York City.
It's just kind of like a New York steakhouse tradition. In choosing our NYC restaurant, you have demonstrated an appreciation for the finer things in life. Uncle Jack's is not your run-of-the-mill New York steakhouse. Like, I bet it is.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Uncle Jack's is literally... like, it could be called Uncle Jack's, your run-of-the-mill Midtown New York steakhouse for idiots from out of town who don't know any better, and Matt Leck.
This is a total. If I didn't know that this guy had odious views, and I would totally go to a place like this.
This is what Leck said, actually. I remember he's revised his opinion, but he said when we cracked, because, we cracked 1,000 on TMBS, thanks, everybody. He said, why don't we go celebrate at Uncle Jack's?
Yeah, some things. Willie's own personal website is like he's obviously trying to become
Willie Deagle. He's trying to become like a motivational speaker.
Yeah, like once Janine Pirro gets in the door, all these other guys are like, I can do this. So he's got Willie Says, his new blog coming soon. No holds bar commentary on the restaurant industry, human nature, and so much more.
Human nature.
And he's also got the nickname the Steak Doctor. Find out how a local kid from Queens become known around the world as the Steak Doctor. It's a story that would make Horatio Alger proud.
Oh, he should have done. He should have. It's a story to make Horatio Alger look like a loser. It's a story that'll make Horatio Alger look like a freaking Stolgatz. This is the problem with, like, even in the most benign version of, like, hey, work harder, stay focused, have goals. Like, the Republicans take, like, the self-help section of the store and put it into the econ section. And that's a big problem. Neo-libs do that, too, with, like, Sheryl Sandberg, right? Like, if that book was just like, hey, here's like an advice book for women who work in upwardly mobile corporate jobs for how to potentially negotiate better. Fair enough. But that became like a clarion call of like some type of feminism. Has nothing to do with politics. But yeah, but I like our periodic check-ins into the Fox News scumbag network. I also
please put more business owners on TV.
Yeah, like definitely put more business owners on TV, because every time we have business owners on TV, we're really reminded that they're not sending us their best. A lot of them are stupid. They look like coked out fiends. They can't cut into their income slightly to pay people a living wage. They're Goombas from Queens who run overpriced steakhouses, and I'm sure some of them are nice people. Audiobooks are great for helping you be a better you, whether you want to feel healthier, get motivated, or learn something new. And with unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audiobook shows, comedy, and more, Audible has all the audio content you need to start your year out on the right foot. Try a book like, Matt, did you? Fire and Fury. Did you listen to it? Did you do the Audible treatment?
I audibled that last weekend.
Was it as delicious as everybody has been saying?
Yeah, there was some good details in there. Yeah, I think it was of the recent history books on politics. I thought it was fun.
Was it nice to have like a book read, and I'm assuming the authorship kind of having it read to you added to the entertainment value? I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Whether it's on your phone, through your car, from your tablet, or at home on Amazon Echo, you can go through tons of books while doing almost anything.
Like playing video games.
Like playing video games.
I was doing when I listened to Fire and Fury.
And Audible even lets you switch seamlessly between devices, picking up exactly where you left off. Start a 30-day trial, and your first audiobook is free. Go to audible.com/majority or text majority to 500-500. That's audible.com/majority or text majority to 500-500 for a 30-day trial and a free first audiobook. You can do it with audiobooks. When it comes to your health, brushing teeth is one of the most important parts of your day. Did you guys know that? No. I would say multiple parts of your day, because I brush my teeth multiple times.
I do it at least twice.
I go for 3 or 4.
I usually do a
2 is the minimum.
I usually do like a mid-evening one and then again at night.
Yep. That's why Quip has combined the best in dentistry and design to make a new electric toothbrush that packs just the right amount of vibrations into a slimmer design at a fraction of the cost of traditional electronic brushes. With Quip, the guiding pulse alerts you to when to switch sides, making brushing the right amount effortless. It even comes with a mount that suctions right to your mirror and can be used as a cover for hygienic travel anywhere. That's awesome. And Quip's subscription plan refreshes your brush on a dentist-recommended schedule every 3 months for just $5, including free shipping worldwide. No wonder Quip is backed by a network of over 10,000 dental professionals and was named one of Time Magazine's best inventions of the year. Find out for yourself. Quip starts at just $25. Go to quip.com/majority. Right now, you'll get your first refill pack free with a Quip electric toothbrush. That's your first refill pack free at getquip.com/majority. Getquip.com. That is GETQUIP.com/majority. Go for it. We'll be right back with Corey Pein on the Majority Report.
Say, here comes trouble, here comes the danger, sent by the Savior, welcome the Rasta youths. I start recruit, soldiers for Selassie, army. Here comes trouble, here comes the danger, welcome the Savior, welcome the Rasta youths. You're not for oxygen, at the general issue in a warning. Job people, them a ball, said them tired of mediocre. Evil a go fall when we tried in Ethiopia. Believing from down, cause them life not easy boat. Even one can say it's not an easy road. Operation, occupy the motherland. Calling all soldiers to kind of tread along. From creation, he writing a job plan, but chronics can't do it alone. So I'm recruiting soldiers coming from near and far, I choose executing. Selassie I works and the Rastafari truth. And them say, here comes trouble, here comes the danger, sent by the Savior, welcome the Rasta youths. I'm gonna start recruit soldiers for Selassie I army. Here comes trouble, here comes the danger, welcome the Savior, welcome the Rasta youths. You're not for oxygen.
Welcome back to the Majority Report. Michael Brooks here. Joining us now is Corey Pein. He's a journalist based in Portland and author of the forthcoming book, available for pre-order now, Live, Work, 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 Die. A journey into the dark heart of Silicon Valley?
Savage heart of Silicon Valley.
The savage heart of Silicon Valley. Very, very excited about that book. I have already pre-ordered mine, as should everybody listening and watching. That book is going to be indispensable for navigating the terrifying fantasy life that these Silicon Valley vultures are going to project onto the rest of us.
Yeah, it's every day. We're living in it. It's not a future dystopia. It's the present dystopia.
So there's a lot of present dystopias that we're navigating right now. And today we're going to focus on immigration. We'll get to quickly your perspective. It's something you've covered for a lot of different outlets and reported pretty aggressively, specifically, I guess, in the Pacific Northwest and some in New Mexico as well, I believe. So we'll get to the sort of what this just systemic abuse looks like on the ground. But starting with the macro politics of it, I mean, what do you make of the shutdown and where we stand, and your sort of basic takeaway? I mean, I'll just say that I am glad. I'm wary. We'll see where this goes, but I do appreciate at least that the Democrats have at least pulled the trigger on something, at the very least, over, seriously taking care of the dreamers. I mean, to me, it's just the absolute beyond bare minimum.
I think that's a good place to frame it, is the absolute bare minimum. I will say I was hoping that before this segment we would get to hear a little bit from Uncle Jack the Steak Doctor about the immigration bill, his take on it.
The problem is they're very entitled in the present environment. So I used to be able to say, you don't have papers, I'll send you back to a gang rape in El Salvador. And then they felt proud of being servants because of that. But now... under Obama, they were all like, you got to give me water. So, that really, things were out of control.
Yeah, I'm sure all the workers in his kitchen have all the appropriate paperwork. And
right.
We probably would have got a nice lecture from that jerk about, how, they don't feel entitled. They're hard workers, but, we gotta jerk them around a bit and maybe hang the threat of deportation over their head to really get them motivated.
Yeah, well, you don't want people to be cocky.
Well, look, okay, about the Democrats, I mean, it's I guess not surprising, but somewhat sad that we see them in a completely defensive position once again.
Mm-hmm.
This debate is now about save DACA, defend DACA. Mm-hmm. There's bills coming up which would preserve it, but in a form that's actually worse for people, for the dreamers who are, participating in this program, would essentially turn them into like parolees, criminalize them, make them check in and stuff. I mean, that is not an improvement, and if that's the kind of way that they save DACA, well, good job, Democrats. I mean, I don't understand how they are always framing things in this way, always falling for Republican framing,
Well, they have. So this is sort of what is on the table, right? Maybe you could elaborate on it. So they're in shutdown right now because specifically, and this is a funding bill that would do some very important, the most important thing of which it would actually at least provide a bit more funding for the Children's Health Insurance Program, CHIP, and of course, to keep government running. Democrats have stopped it because there isn't a DACA proposal. Different DACA proposals include, it seems like negotiations in the Senate, which might be along the lines of, not a clean DACA, but essentially a continuation of the Obama executive order in exchange for potentially some very bad things, broader limitations and crackdowns on immigration, but also things that are, bad, but frankly, whatever. The wall is nonsense. If you want to waste some money on the wall in exchange for real protections, I'm of the school of fine, who cares? In the House, there's bills like the Goodlatte bill, which would have these sort of like probationary approach to DACA as well as the parents of DACA, and then actually, in fact, overall just significant limitations, I think a 25% cut on even legal immigration, period. So these are the kind of dynamics we're playing with. And then Trump, of course, has indicated completely different things in different meetings as to what he wants.
There's a lot of confusion in the coverage, and I'm confused reading the coverage because it seems like people are defaulting to form. There's all this insistence, we need an immigration bill on the president's desk that he'll sign, as though he even knows what he would be signing.
Right.
I mean, we've seen how clueless he is when he had brought cameras into the room a week or two ago or whenever it was.
Over the weekend, the show he was working?
Yeah. His brain is a soggy sponge. One day he's for DACA, one day, he's chastising the Democrats for trying to defend non-citizens. I think that was the latest tweet. I mean, it's a little bit absurd to try to base the negotiations on trying to please this man. I mean, I think the shutdown is good, actually. We need to shut down more of the government. The only parts that aren't shut down is the ICE machine, which is grinding away and terrorizing people while the government is supposedly shut down. How about a bill from the Democrats? How about they unite around a bill to abolish ICE?
Right.
Put the immigration function under the U.S. Postal Service or something. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, no, and we're going to get to in a moment this because you've covered the ICE terror machine. But the other thing though is that just to bring people up to date. I mean, the latest is that there's one of these, every time you read about a meeting of a group of moderates, that's be very afraid of what the Senate's most sanctimonious and ridiculous are cooking up. And it would essentially amount, and all the usual suspects, Flake and Collins and Trump state Democrats. And what they're cooking up is that there would be temporary continuation of funding, essentially in exchange for a verbal assurance from Mitch McConnell that a bill addressing immigration will come up in the floor in February. Now, this is also supposedly the same thing that got Flake to vote for the tax bill. Now, I don't believe that one way or another, because Jeff Flake is totally committed to that wretched oligarch enriching tax bill, because he's a wretched oligarch enricher like all Republicans. But the excuse that McConnell used previously was that, well, I couldn't bring something to the floor because I'm not sure what the president wants. I'm not sure what Trump wants. As you just said, Trump is a clueless, soggy-brained fool, and we're never going to be clear what he wants. And you could stick anything in front of his face, and if you told him it was tough and would have good headlines, he'll sign it because he's a moron. But there still is a group of people that are actually playing, and apparently there will be a vote today to reopen government, says Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. We don't know. Presumably this emanates from the meeting of the moderates, and probably what McConnell is going to say to them verbally is that, well, we don't, now there'll just be a vote regardless of what Trump says. I have no idea why you take his word for it.
Yeah, I saw that too. I mean, waiting for promises from McConnell is like not the safest bet, right?
Right. So you talk. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. Did you have something else?
Well, I was just going to say,
Here comes trouble, here comes the danger, sent by the Savior, welcome the Rasta youth. I start recruit, soldiers for Selassie, army. Here comes trouble, here comes the danger, welcome the Savior, welcome the Rasta youth. You know fi ask is who, at the general issue in a warning, left and right, the soldiers are come. Left, right, the soldiers are come. Could I never throw it down, oh boy. Yeah, how we say left, right, the soldiers are come. Left, right, the soldiers are come. Left, right, the soldiers are come. Marching on, boy. And me say, here comes trouble, my friend. And here comes danger. Rastafari send me come.
Sorry about that, folks. Their internet went down. We're back with Corey Pein. If you're listening to this later, you won't even notice the difference. That's how well produced this show is. Corey, we were talking about you were. I don't know if you were mid sentence. I don't know if you
globalists interrupted us.
Globalists.
Shut down the internet. Just a trial run.
These are sick people. Someday it would be great to do a show. We just put up Brian Stelter's picture behind us and just were like, please, Lord, take the picture away. Corey.
I don't know what you were going to ask, but I was just saying that I don't trust the reporting on the state of play with the shutdown today, yesterday, whatever, because so often the White House has blown up what the moderate, reasonable people of Washington think they're going to do. So that's all the point I was going to make before.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely. Let's get to, you've done a lot of reporting, and you've talked about the ISIS terror machine, and that really, it's just a little bit of a preamble. Like I in some ways, I've become increasingly convinced that in certain areas, certain types of kind of inflammatory rhetoric, even when they're in fact true, are not necessarily strategically helpful. But I think that in this case of calling it the ICE terror machine, it's not even like skillful, justified hyperbole. It literally is what it is. I mean, it's an organization that is being set upon communities to absolutely disrupt, destroy, communities and deeply enhance human misery. And that's the purpose and the design of what's going on. You've recovered, this in a variety of ways, including a piece that you wrote in your local for Willamette Week earlier in the spring on how certain undocumented people who are waiting for deportation are now being housed instead of in detention facilities, which are bad enough. They're actually being held in a county jail. in Oregon as an example. Can you start to get into that and talk about, like, what does it look like to be on the receiving end of these ICE policies?
I mean, the story that you mentioned was part of a strategy by ICE to break up hunger strikes, which they'd been having in their own facilities, which tend to be, private contractor run. Geo Group is one of the big contractors. And, the conditions inside were so miserable for immigration detainees. The food so poor, access to medical care so lacking that they started organizing hunger strikes. And this became such a problem for ICE that they decided to break it up by taking the leaders and moving them to different facilities, some of which had even worse conditions by reputation. And in apparent violation of, at least where it happened in Oregon, the state's sanctuary law. The problem is when the sanctuary statutes get violated, nobody gets punished, right? It's like for all the frothing we've heard from the Trump administration about how these sanctuary policies get in their way, it seems that there's no consequence when local officials violate them and cooperate with ICE or devote resources to help the immigration roundup. As far as what it is, go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
As far as what it looks like for people, I use that word terror machine advisedly. I mean, people get picked up, off of the street by guys in an unmarked car when they're walking their kids to the school bus stop. People are looking over their shoulders for their workplaces to get raided, whether they're working on a construction site or in the fields. People are hiding in their homes, with the blinds drawn and afraid to step outside because they're afraid ICE is watching on the street, and often they are. And just those are the tactics I saw last year. There's reports now in the last few weeks that ICE is, tightening the net. I wrote about the sanctuary movement, which is often based around churches. Now ICE is stationing SUVs and agents to watch these churches. They're questioning parishioners as they come and go. The Intercept had a good story about that just a few days ago. And they're targeting immigrants' rights activists, many of whom are immigrants themselves in New York, Colorado, California, and here in the Northwest as well. I had a source who's a really impressive activist, a woman from Mexico City, who's been living here for more than 20 years, who just a few days before Christmas has gotten a deportation order. So, her community is rallying behind her to try to stop it, but who knows?
When I think this is something that there's a lot of confusion about. When a city or a state says that they're a sanctuary city or state, and look, I don't entirely discount some of this, but I mean, there's value in, there's value in Jerry Brown or Bill de Blasio or whoever saying, we don't support this, at least rhetorically and instinctually, policy-wise, we're opposed to terrorizing immigrants. And we've supported policies, at least like here in New York City, of, IDs for undocumented people as an example, so they can access certain vital government services and have some basic labor protections. That's all well and good. But it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, and then we'll move to the second part, which is the sort of churches and social action piece. But from a policy perspective, like on one hand, the kind of resistance-osphere maybe overreads what that means from a policy perspective when California as a state or Portland as a city says it's a sanctuary, a place of sanctuary. What does that actually mean? They might be overinflating it. Then on the other hand, I mean, the administration, as you just said, while on one hand it doesn't appear to actually interfere that much with ICE's ability to terrorize these communities, you have people like Jeff Sessions the other day actually even floating the idea of arresting local officials who, promote sanctuary. And that's, on top of threatening.
Did Sessions say that too? I know the ICE director, Thomas Homan, had said that on Fox.
I believe Sessions floated that as well, or somebody from the Justice Department, but we can double check that.
That's very disturbing, because if they're repeating it, I mean, it shows that they're serious about it. I mean, the fact that the ICE director, Thomas Homan, even said that on TV should be a scandal. I mean, we were talking in the first part of the segment about, the shutdown, what the Democrats maybe should be doing and aren't doing. I mean, how about dragging that guy in front of Congress and asking him what the hell he's talking about, arresting local politicians?
Right.
That enforce sanctuary laws. I mean, that is really scary territory. And in the context of the kind of stories that we're seeing every day, every week, where somebody who's been in the country for 40 years never committed a crime, now those people are getting rounded up in very well-publicized arrests. These arrests are happening in such a way they want people to see them. ICE can make people disappear, and they do all the time without any publicity. But we're hearing about these arrests. We're hearing about they seem nonsensical, and then we see the families crying on television. I mean, these are designed to create an effect.
Well, isn't it? I mean, before we do that, just really quick. I mean, what does it mean when a place says it's a sanctuary? Does it just basically mean that we are not going to? Local police are not directed to ask the types of questions that could lead somebody to expose themselves as being undocumented? Is that essentially what it means?
You know what it means? It means that the middle-class voting public, white voting public, is to feel good that they're a sanctuary jurisdiction. It means that some local, city, county officials maybe stand up at a podium with some immigrants' rights activists, and maybe, the sheriff or the chief of police who answers to the council, and they declare, we're a sanctuary jurisdiction. They sign a piece of paper that says we're not going to devote any resources to rounding people up, and we'll refuse requests. And then what happens is, down at the county jail, the jailer, or the guy that's booking people in, gets his daily visit from an ICE agent who says, hey, got any names for me today? Or can you run this for me? Or what's new? And then they pass them the information anyway. Now, that's what happened here in Portland. I know it happens in other cities, too. So what happens when that kind of conduct is revealed? Well, in our state, it's actually a crime for a public official to cooperate with ICE, a public employee. It's considered a misapplication of state resources, and it's a crime. It could be prosecuted. And I ask, prosecutors, I ask lawyers, I ask politicians, how about enforcing this law? Has anybody ever tried to enforce it? No. I mean, it's too much of a shitstorm. Can you imagine if the prosecutor starts bringing charges against, local police, local sheriff's deputies for breaking the sanctuary law? Their unions are going to get Their unions are going to get right behind them and say, no, their job is to cooperate with law enforcement. How can this be? Huge clusterfuck. I mean, so it hasn't happened. I think it should happen. I think these laws, if a sanctuary jurisdiction means anything, they should enforce it. So, short answer to your question is it doesn't mean much.
What does it mean when civil society and churches get involved? What kind of and obviously at enormous personal risk? What's going on with those people?
This is where the crackdown is advancing. I mean, starting a year ago, well before that, actually, starting in the 80s, there was an immigration crackdown, and many churches across the country organized a new sanctuary movement in response to it, where they would try to shield people who were targeted for deportation in their congregations, with the understanding that these were considered sacred spaces, and it wouldn't look good for the police to come in and drag people out of a church. And back in the 80s, I mean, some people actually went to jail, were prosecuted, and went to jail for that. It was a big story. Well, I mean, starting about a year or two ago, this movement began picking up steam again. The organizing became more urgent after Trump's election, given that he'd essentially promised to deport 11 million people as part of his campaign. So, churches, synagogues, mosques, other faith groups, mostly faith groups, I'll say, they really deserve credit for this, started organizing this kind of network. Now, I've called it a kind of underground railroad, and some people say that's insensitive and minimizes, what black people went through under slavery in this country. But I think it's a fair comparison when you actually see the terror that immigrants are living in today. Yep. So these congregations are organizing to shelter people, and there's a lot of debate about whether that's even wise, because does it just create a honeypot for the police to raid? And ICE, like I said earlier, now that they're standing outside churches interrogating people coming and going, they suspect it might be a sanctuary church. What does that signal about their intentions?
I have my only response to that, though, would be I have a thought experiment about religion. It's definitely good. Yeah, I don't know why you're distracting from the issue by talking about faith-based communities intervening in one of the greatest abuses of people happening in the United States today, when I can show you that Genesis is a silly story.
Yeah, stupid.
It's so stupid.
Silly spaghetti monster worshippers.
Yeah, silly.
With their morals and their sense of like some sacred duty to protect human life.
Yeah, they're really totally the people that are ruining discourse from much needed rationality, because far more important than ICE raids are 5-hour videos on some dumb thing that happened on an Oberlin campus for sure. So
that's happening, and these people are they're putting themselves at the line. I mean, they could be charged with harboring a fugitive.
Yep.
If the ICE director is saying, maybe we should go after politicians, I don't think they'd hesitate to go after priests who are engaged in this. So, I mean, these people are really putting themselves on the line. There's a church here in Portland that says, they've got room for 200 people. If they hear the raids are happening, everybody comes there, and then the plan is for the parishioners to surround the church and make sure ICE can't come or go. I mean, I'm not sure. The big rumor mill now is that there's some massive push headed for California. Some kind of they're flying agents in to do some kind of enormous immigration sweep. And who knows if that's true? It might just be another rumor to spread fear. We've seen a lot of those. Right. It might turn out to be real. In either case, I mean, you've got an agency that was founded supposedly in part to protect people from terrorizing the public.
Yep.
Because it's not just it's not just undocumented immigrants who are at risk. It's their families. It's everyone who knows them. It's anyone who might be mistaken for an undocumented immigrant. I mean, we're back to the debate like when Arizona passed its thing some years ago, where local cops could enforce immigration laws. I mean, they just started pulling over brown people.
Right. Well, but isn't that where it leads to? That obviously that's the purpose, right? The purpose is to spread fear and suffering, and then we are in Mitt Romney's self-deportation territory. Isn't that just sort of so abundantly obvious? And another, I guess, structural problem with this argument, because there's always been sort of three poles, basically, of how to talk about immigration. There's immigration from the perspective that just because somebody is, undocumented or came here, let's be real, in many cases because of conditions that U.S. foreign policy actively contributed to, or even if they didn't, as simply as, yeah, you know what? If you're in a devastated situation and you came here and you didn't fill out the right paperwork or whatever, but you're, moving along in life and contributing. I mean, honestly, who cares? Right? Like, if we're being real. So there's a concern that just because you came here in a way that wasn't technically compliant, you can't be abused and exploited. You can't be in a position where everything from an employer to a husband that's physically abusing you can get away with it. So there needs, you need to be in the system. And of course, in many cases, people are in the system because they're paying taxes, they're contributing in many ways to the economy, society, and so on, blah, 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 blah. Then there's this bipartisan business wing, including, and this was the George W. Bush proposal, which is that we basically want to get a bunch of kind of low-wage people in here formally. And there was some objections in certain parts of the left to that. I think those objections maybe weren't long-term and strategic in terms of what a kind of real synchronized left look like, but there's legitimate concerns if you're just sort of opening up essentially an indentured servitude, low-wage process. And now, we have the Republican nativist wing, which is completely taken over, and it's all about race and identity, but also, I think, with the serious self-interest. I mean, why would, if you're making the bet that white identity politics is going to keep the party in power into the future, why would you want Texas to look like California? Why would you want these states and places to be in play? So it seems like we have another area where, Democrats in a kind of center position are losing it on both grounds. There isn't the unapologetic, rigorous, crusader ethics of protecting people who are being massively abused, dreamers, but also this entire community. And then also just the strategic sense that every time you see some dumb Fox clip about, hey, Democrats just want undocumenteds in here because it will help them, I'm like, yeah, fuck yes. I certainly do. And you want them not here so it will help you, and you're racist. So let's just get all the cards on the table.
The hypocrisy of, I mean, it almost goes without saying, of the Republicans is bottomless. But on this issue of this false premise that they put out that people just got to play by the rules. Here's something I learned in the last few months reporting on this issue. One of my friends is an immigration lawyer down in New Mexico, and do you know what happens if you come to this country and apply for asylum in the proper, lawful way? You present yourself at the border. You say, I'm here to, I'm a refugee, help me out. Mm-hmm. They take these people, whether they come from Africa or Latin America or Asia, they take them and they ship them off to a detention center where they can be for 2 years. These centers, the one my friend works at, working with asylum applicants from Africa mostly, they're out in the middle of the desert in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. They languish there for months or years at a time. It is a converted prison. It's like where you would put felons, and these people haven't. And
they put children in those facilities as well, right?
Yeah.
By the way,
there's separate ones for women, and there's baby jails, as my friend calls it. I mean, these are people who are trying to do things right, and the first thing that our country does to them is throw them in prison.
Yep.
While we decide whether they're worthy. So this idea that people just need to play by the rules is just papering over, the real motivation, which is racist punishment.
Right. There's no doubt about it.
And it is part of a political and electoral calculation, as you suggested. And I'm not sure why more Democrats don't understand that. When the ICE director came out and said, let's start arresting politicians in sanctuary jurisdictions, it was interesting to see the responses. I wish I had the quotes pulled up. But Dianne Feinstein said something like, this is not right. Nobody should be targeted just because they live in California. Mm. and Barbara Lee, yeah, I know.
Okay.
It was the weakest statement you could make.
Definitely the main takeaway from that is California. Ooh, California, you. Okay.
Whereas Barbara Lee, to her credit, said this is racist.
Yeah, well, Barbara Lee is obviously somebody who's has genuine politics and a very sort of courageous long-term record.
I don't understand why somebody like Feinstein would have such a hard time saying this is racist. Are they afraid of their white voters? I mean, it could be that. If that's so, they need to have a little bit more courage, and I hope give the public a little bit more credit.
Yeah, and also again, even operationally, look at where the future of the votes are. I mean, the reality is, and this gets so basic, you don't have to get into the weeds of all the kind of online debates and all this, stuff about, speech and this and that. But there's an incredibly basic reality that if you are a white voter voting for center left or center or any Democratic candidate, you at the bare minimum have subordinated your racism to other things you care more about. Or just as, if not more likely, you might not pass a graduate seminar in wokeness, or whatever, and who cares? But you're probably a person who's like, yeah, I don't really like extreme overt racism. Not so into that. And I can kind of get that ICE is terrorizing people. And if my main thing was some type of nativism, I'm not voting for a Democrat, including one that might posture on these issues completely. Now, there might be an exception in a John Tester case or a Claire McCaskill case or a Joe Manchin case, but certainly not in a Dianne Feinstein case, and certainly not in the vast majority of the country where people are voting for Democratic candidates.
I mean, the Democrats need a language. They need to figure out a way to have a language that makes people remember that immigration is good. and as I said at the beginning, they're completely defensive right now. But look at the Republicans. They've come up with this term chain migration, right, which is like, and now everybody's using this term, where it as far as I can tell, it just means migration.
Right.
But they're painting it as this horrible people come here and then they have families, and it's like, well, yeah. Yes. How do you think we all got here?
Right.
Right. So where's I even during the Obama era, I remember at least some nods to this sort of national myth of Ellis Island, and we all came here, and melting pot, blah blah blah. You don't even hear that anymore. Right. But I will say that in my reporting, the immigrants who are being targeted by ICE, who've come to this country legally with papers or not, are some of the most impressive people I know. Particularly this woman, Maru Mora Viapanda, who is being targeted for deportation. She was sort of the centerpiece of the story I wrote for the Baffler last year about the ICE detention center in Tacoma. And here's an undocumented woman in her 40s. She's got a daughter. Daughter was born in this country. They're standing outside this enormous prison. It's the size of a city block, and it's in this industrial zone, right? Like you have to go for half a mile past all of these empty warehouses, broken bottles, like homeless encampments, and just nothing, mud and asphalt, and industrial waste. And then you turn a corner, and for a whole block, there's this building, and this activist I talked to from Mexico, he said he had visited the day before me, and he said it's a concentration camp. And looking at it, you realize it is. And coming in and out of this place are an endless chain of women with tiny children who are all crying, and they're going to visit their dads who are locked up inside this thing.
Right. Wondering
what's going to happen. And here's Maru outside in a T-shirt that says "Fuck La Migra," standing in the rain with a bullhorn and shouting in at people, "You're not alone," and telling everybody that comes in, like, "Hey, did you know there's a hunger strike down in California at the prison there?" And that's how they spread word. I mean, that's why they're targeting these people. They don't want any effective resistance. They don't want people to see what they're doing. I mean, lawyers and the conditions in these places. I mean, you talk about how the Democrats can flip this issue, turn the tables. I mean, they should be investigating the conditions in these facilities. Right. What are these? What are they? Because everything I hear from the people who've been in, or that word comes out from the inmates, is that they're really bad.
And these are often private. Like this is the same business that we see.
This is the for-profit prison industry that Trump single-handedly rescued. That was basically on its way for bankruptcy at the end of the Obama, presidency.
Right. Well, Corey Pein, I mean, I guess the only note is to say, and this starts to feel like its own form of cliche, but it does have to be noted. I mean, there are hunger strikes happening. There is resistance. There are incredibly brave people like this woman who's being targeted, of course, for deportation. It's there. I mean, I guess we just have to. I mean, the Democratic Party is always a lagging indicator. So, the thing would be is that does this issue, along with something like, other vital thing like Medicare for all, to what extent does this start to become, part of, at the very least, the rhetorical frame that you need to do if you're going to run for president in 2020? And I like what you're saying about the investigations, because that actually isn't even, you know, here's a bold piece of legislation that's never going to pass under Republican leadership, and, you know, all of the, you know, healthcare industry is going to try to kill, right? That this is something that you as a senator with that type of power, and even just literally in terms of press coverage alone, could get coverage of abuses in, you know, detention centers, and
Hell
God,
yes.
that should be a demand right now of all of them.
The Attorney General of Washington State, toward the end of last year, sued the company that runs that prison in Tacoma, basically saying that they were, you know, exploiting labor of their inmates, and, you know, they weren't meeting the state's labor laws. You know, this is a loss. I mean, he could put them out of business in Washington. Now they could pick up and move somewhere else. But I didn't hear anybody from the Senate,
right,
even mention that this was going on. I mean, you know, these senators and even members of the House can get a headline now and then.
Yep.
They just don't seem. It's like, where's their fight? Where is their fight? I don't know. I know you were trying to come up with something that was more positive, but I'm just getting more and more pissed off.
I do feel like you were doing a little bit of a Trump impression, though, at the end. You're like, where's their fight? I don't know. They don't fight. We don't have fighters anymore. Corey Pein, remind everybody of the book that's coming out in April and how they can pre-order it. This book is going to be indispensable for the Silicon Valley age that unfortunately we're all in.
Yeah, the book is Live, Work, 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 Die, A Journey into the Savage Heart of Silicon Valley. And you can pre-order it from Amazon, Powell's, other fine online retailers. Do that immediately. It makes me look good to my publisher.
And, of course, also Corey is the host of the great podcast of which I'm a patron of, the News from Nowhere podcast, which everybody should join on Patreon. In-depth conversations for the sophisticated, humane leftist.
That's good. I should make that the new tagline.
Well, I don't have the background in brand stuff for nothing, Corey. It's true. All right, brother. I always appreciate your time. And, of course, regular contributor to The Michael Brooks Show.
Absolutely. Talk to you again soon, Michael. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, Corey. Appreciate it. All right, everybody. We are going to go. I don't know what happened earlier. I think we were only out for like 2 minutes or so, right?
Yeah, it's weird. That's a number of times. It always happens in the first half, but like once a month we'll get a little hiccup like that.
Globalist. Brian Stelter.
My mind always goes to like it's a solar flare and the entire planet's going to be roasted. So
I go to Mossad.
I think you guys are giving ISPs a bit too much credit there.
Yeah, maybe we should just go that these disgusting monopolies who have
Verizon.
corners on markets and provide absolutely no value and are parasites just don't have an incentive to do good service because they have monopoly control.
Really good at innovating how to like squash unions. Though.
Yeah, that's the innovation is in lobbying and union squashing. Tech they can just let ride because they own Washington. As I said before, the Michael Brooks Show is at over 1,017 patrons. I appreciate it all, everybody who's done that. And this past weekend for patrons, Illicit History with Bill Fletcher Jr. on the Jesse Jackson 1988 campaign, the Rainbow Coalition, Lessons for Today. It's pretty fascinating. Tomorrow in studio, Anthony LaPay is going to join me. We're going to do a deep dive history into the opioid crisis, going back to CIA heroin trafficking in Laos in the 1960s, plus, of course, the pyramid, opening commentary, everything. You know what it is. Check out the Michael Brooks Show on iTunes and YouTube and on Patreon, patreon.com/TMBS. And become a member of the Majority Report today, majority.fm/become a member. That's how this show pays its bills, over 90%. Justcoffee.coop, fair trade, tea, coffee, or chocolate. Get the Majority Report blend. I don't know if that deal is still going. I think there's 10% off with promo code Majority, I believe. Use our jet.com link, Majority Report kickback, 646-257-3920, 646-257-3920. We will be right back on the fun half.
And though he'd like
sending, Bill? Will you print something out on it if you get it? What did you say? I'm not in this G-chat because I'm not signed in. What's up? Yeah. And I don't want to deal with that. I mean, maybe we should have it set up so I could be on it, but as of now, I'm not. You're calling from an 847 area code. Welcome, I should say, first of all, welcome to the fun half. You were just caught there by some riveting backstage.
It's so riveting, man.
Sorry, wait, really hold on 1 second before you cut off. I'm welcoming everybody to the fun half. Welcome to the fun half, Majority Report. Josh from Chicago.
That was I'm not a morning person either. Well, I can do 8 a.m., but it's tough. I relate. Yeah.
I like 8 a.m. I've just been exhausted, man. What's on your mind?
First of all, that interview with Bernie was amazing. Like,
oh, really?
Seriously, one of the best pieces of. Yeah, on Friday.
Yep. No, of course it was amazing. What else do you expect?
I did want him to refer to Mitch McConnell as a little prick, though.
I wanted him to refer to Sam as a little prick.
Like, you're wrong, you little prick.
Yeah, listen. Yeah, look. Okay, Sam, get it. I get it. You're clever. Let me explain the shutdown, okay, you little prick? No, Bernie was great. I mean, look, but so today, some of the stuff that Corey talked about, I think there's legitimate. I want to push Bernie on some, although he's gotten better, but I want to push him. I think there's hay to be made on immigration issues by Bernie. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the bottom line is, and every single time, you give him a forum, it's like, if you're even going to pretend that you have any kind of like sincere left politics that has any type of material concern for people, that's it. He's what's in play. I mean, period. I mean, maybe to a significantly lesser but not completely non-existent extent, Elizabeth Warren. And everybody else, like, I'm glad they're pretending. I'm glad that they're moving in the right direction, but they ain't the choice if you care about any type of serious agenda. Sorry. And Bernie just proves that again and again and again and again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agree completely. I actually really want quickly to, like, somebody called in last week on the Michael Monday to talk about, like, what was going on with the EU and Corbyn. And having worked on the Corbyn campaign, I had a bit of insight into that, and I just sort of wanted to, like, clear something up.
Yeah, say what you got.
So basically, the EU thing, what Corbyn's stance on that was, so he campaigned to Remain in 2016, and actually, if you listen to his arguments for Remain, he basically predicted what was going to happen, especially if there's a Tory government, which is England would just become essentially like a tax, resort for wealthy people, essentially, like a loophole, one big loophole, and that a lot of these services would actually be cut, and that a lot of the protections that you need would be cut as well. But I think what happened in the general election is he didn't really take a pro or negative stance on the EU either way, except to say this was the democratic result and this is what happened.
Yeah,
and we have to sort of deliver for the vote is what would happen, as opposed to what Theresa May did, which she basically became like a born-again Brexiteer and basically just said, like, this is the great, this is a great opportunity for us, when she actually campaigned for Remain during the referendum.
No, I understand that. I don't think, it kind of goes without saying, like, of course, Theresa May is ridiculous, and of course the Tory response is shambolic, but I do think it's fair to say that Jeremy Corbyn at the very least has strong sympathies for Brexit and is playing a calculated position to not alienate the small amount of labor that's pro-Brexit and to not alienate maybe a broader populist mood in the country, and then also at the same time, have enough sort of grayness so that it doesn't become a deal breaker for people that are opposed to Brexit. I mean, I think that is basically what he's doing. And I happen to disagree with him, although I think that there's far more important issues, frankly.
He did say, though, that if he was to re-vote, he would make the same vote he did again, which was to remain. And I mean, I think
that's not
to me, it's like everything he predicted about sort of the catastrophes of this Brexit thing. If there is a Tory government, will become true.
Yeah, but I think he could give himself much more position to say, you know, right now there's a debate. I think he could take the consequences of Brexit are pretty bad, and I think he could take slightly. That's what I would do. That's really my only kind of substantive criticism of Jeremy Corbyn.
Coming to that realization, actually.
I agree, and I don't think it's going to be tenable to stay like this. Appreciate the call, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
A quick question on the sound sheet, guys. Do we have the Scarborough laughing video though? The thing that we pulled. You guys, I sent that to you. You have that? Make sure to have that. I know we have that, but then there's also the one I ammed you from with the reporter. And for Sassy Trump, do we have the... We have both of them. Okay, great. Well, let's do... I got the laugh now. Okay. So, you know, I can't even compute this because there's a lot of talk, and it's sort of like commonly accepted that, you know, Donald Trump is a fool and a baby and an idiot, and he needs to be constantly placated, and he needs a crew of sycophants to feed his fantasy life. And then it's also commonly accepted that even people who were maybe on the opposite end that were president, who tried, like someone like Barack Obama, who tried to remain a normal, approachable person, you know, there's only so much you can do when you have that many trappings to sort of keep yourself somewhat anchored in reality. But then you have people who are in the news business, and we already know that they're totally overcompensated and they have a small elite audience. But you might think, even if you're just like a morning news person, like I would really like to think that no matter how much I reached in my career, that I would always have people to say like, hey, dude, that's just embarrassing. Don't do that. That's just a bad call. Let alone like, what are your genuine thoughts on how I'm covering this story? Am I getting it wrong? How about just like the basic, like, this is shockingly embarrassing. And of course, when I speak about morning anchors and shockingly embarrassing, I obviously could be leading to nothing other than Joe Scarborough's musical efforts. Joe Scarborough, who, yeah, what do we call him? Like Bro Elvis Costello or something. He's been singing crappy songs for a very long time. He wrote a very just deeply embarrassing. He wrote a song about 9/11, which was almost like another 9/11. Imagine being a victim of this terrorist attack and realizing that some blowhard with a Starbucks cup like commandeered a studio in Midtown Manhattan to write a song honoring you. Think of how bad that is. And now Joe Scarborough and Mika, who are totally not friends with Donald Trump anymore, like totally done. Like they used to be besties and then they get into fights and then they'd be besties again. But now it's like over. And you can really tell that it's like over. And Joe Scarborough is not going to do anything like we're going to play in a second, like he used to with Trump, because Joe Scarborough, along with some, and just watch this segment. You would think that they are like announcing that they're going to host a Nobel Peace Prize winner. Like next we're back with like Malala Yousafzai to talk about the Women's March. Okay, this is a really serious looking Mika. And oh my God, she must be in love with this guy. And a sort of just putting like just the height of self-satisfaction, Joe Scarborough. They're talking about the Women's March. And Joe has released a song for the Women's March. I apologize in advance if you're like me. As much as I enjoy mocking and ridiculing things, I actually get very embarrassed on behalf of other people very easily. And I found this deeply embarrassing and uncomfortable to watch and listen to. But this is the type of thing that I do as an anchor for the public good. Take a look at this. And then after that, we're going to take a little brief trip down memory lane, which I'll help set up.
Still living in its shadow. We'll talk to him about that in a moment. And speaking of volatile times and protest movements, we go to break with some of the powerful images from over the weekend as millions of Americans gathered in cities and streets across the nation for the 2018 Women's March.
Once in your life, you may get the chance to stand against a column of tanks.
What this president is doing is just so wrong.
Holding up your hand.
Oh my God, this fucking guy.
And once in your life,
we all in this movement together.
You may get the chance to say,
thanks for ruining Common.
We're not stopping.
Words like deep within your heart.
It's so generic.
That change the outcome of a day.
We cannot have somebody like this in the White House.
Once in your life, you may dare hold out your hand.
Resist the racism.
To a stranger in need.
What if the resistance actually does like have a successful coup and makes this the national anthem?
Then I would want Trump reinstated immediately. All right, I can't take it. Like really, truly, like it's awkwardly embarrassing to watch. Just as a brief reminder, and of course, again, this stuff doesn't matter really because hypocrisy is utterly irrelevant. But of course, when Scarborough was in Congress, he voted for all sorts of anti-abortion measures, was a regular proponent of the contract with America, was a top Gingrich lieutenant, worked to undermine public health care, and, you know, generally abused people and was kind of really signed up on the Republican agenda. I'm sure that he's made a couple of reversals on, you know, I don't care if people get abortions or whatever now. He is, he voted... He voted for the Medicare Preservation Act of 1995, which was projected to cut Medicare by $270 billion over 10 years. And he also voted against the Small Business Jobs Protection Act of 1996, which at this time raised the minimum wage to $5.15 an hour. He had a conservative voting record on economic, social, and foreign policy issues. So yeah, he was just a sort of mega far-right scumbag. Instead of just a sanctimonious hack centrist. I guess you have their tweets. Of course, Joe Scarborough has a frigging Winston Churchill avatar. Can this guy be like any more like there has to be some part of him that isn't that lame. And then Mika, I love Stand It Too. I love it too. Stand by Scarborough is a song for our times. I'm Mika. The guy must be doing something right. Whatever has gotten him to get that level. The woman you're with loves you if she is pretending to like that song. Now,
or also like some of the financial benefits will accrue to her maybe.
Maybe. If you're downloading that, it's some whatever morons inside the Beltway are that's buying some mink for Mika or whatever it is she wears. Now, just a brief look. When this happened, I laughed, and a lot of people laughed, because it was so disgusting, and this actually, even by Trump standards back then, was kind of mind-blowing. Now, I thought nothing would surprise me about Trump, but when he made fun of a reporter with a serious neurological, I think, like muscular dystrophy, like a really serious, just like not like a fun ethnic accent, not like a fun, like not like Trump's usual stuff, just like, this person's in enormous physical pain because of a disease that they have no control of. I'm going to do an impression in front of them that even like a 10-year-old would already be like, that seems kind of mean, at a campaign rally. Now, we're going to play a clip of this for a reason, because I want you to check out Mr. Resistance, and actually to some extent Miss Resistance's response to this clip. Joe Scarborough wasn't singing a hacky, annoying, pedantic song to co-opt the Women's March. He was enjoying some of Trump's best material only a couple of summers ago.
New Jersey draws the prober's eye, written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Oh, maybe that's what I said. This is 14 years ago. They didn't do a retraction.
Oh, my God.
In an interview with Breitbart News,
What
Trump,
a show.
You guys.
Like Willie Geist, what a
Such
show.
serious issue. You can't. No,
I just love his imitation of the guy. And you know what? There is one element of truth to what Trump's saying that is true and funny, because the poor Washington Post reporter writes this at the time. Okay. And now he is really Willie backing up, going, oh, I don't know what I saw. Well, listen.
I have to admit, I like that Joe Scarborough a lot more than songwriter Joe Scarborough. There's a true meathead scumbag.
Once in your life.
Once in your life, you do the same impression. But now, the insane racist trust fund baby lunatic isn't my friend anymore. So I'll do a stupid song to try to hustle suburbanites. Wow. That's the thing about Trump, is he always reveals that in some ways these people are all a lot worse than he is. At least he's just right that direct scumbag to the gut. Let's do this. This is actually pretty disturbing. Mike Pompeo, he's the CIA director. He was speaking with Norah O'Donnell about basically, I guess he's addressing Russian meddling, supposed Russian meddling, expanding operations with quote-unquote more risk with Norah O'Donnell.
Make no mistake about it. We are doing things today that the CIA was not doing a year ago, and there's more risk attached to those.
Risk-taking, that sounds like you're expanding covert and clandestine operations.
Oh, most certainly.
To what effect? What do you want?
I want the president to have the best intelligence in the world. I'm Michael Richard Pompeo.
As America's top spy master, CIA Director Mike Pompeo splits his time between the agency he runs in Langley, Virginia, and the White House, where he personally helps deliver the president's daily brief.
What's that like? Take us behind the scenes.
So sometime each morning, someone hollers, Pompeo, you're in. And I, along with Director Coates, General McMaster, most days the vice president as well, deliver the president the most exquisite information any leader in the world ever gets a chance to see.
And does it still contain those killer graphics you've talked about?
It does. I love killer graphics. I love them. So do you. It helps communicate information, right? This is the important thing. It's absolutely important that we deliver information to the president in a way that in the time that can be allotted to this, that he can grasp the central information that we're trying to deliver to him.
Okay, I'm not even going to get into the idea of Trump grasping information. It's too cheap and it's too obvious, okay? But I am so disgusted by Norah O'Donnell sitting there chuckling about graphics when this guy has basically told her there are more operations that undoubtedly are killing more civilians and putting us at risk globally. This is an administration that we already know, according to a report by Air Wars that came out last summer, has already significantly increased civilian casualties over the Obama administration. Trump has already killed more civilians than Obama in U.S. fight against IS, and this is according to reports by Air Wars, which is a journalist-based transparency project based in the U.K. So, and by the way, this is not to say there were already far too many civilians killed under Obama. The Obama administration's drone program was absolutely unacceptable. Signature strikes, which are dropping a drone based on behavioral patterning of targets, undoubtedly killed civilians in Pakistan and Yemen, as an example. Trump has only vastly escalated that. In his first month in office, approved a reckless, insane operation which killed many children in Yemen. And, of course, he dropped the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan. What he basically has done, and this is another thing that belies this whole nonsense about him, oh, he's going to rein in the deep state. Yes, There are people from FBI and CIA and so forth that clearly leak against him and have concerns about his competence and mental stability, obviously. And he obviously wants to politicize the agencies to protect himself insofar as he can even conceptualize what that actually means. But when it comes to the day in and day out business of engage in more kinetic activity overseas, put more innocent lives at risk. Yes, 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 yes. Wow, a graphic. And Norah O'Donnell's got nothing other than, I know you like killer graphics. At least from that clip. That was pathetic. Now, here is the CIA director talking about North Korea.
How close is Kim Jong-un to being able to deliver a nuclear attack to the territorial United States?
A handful of months.
But correct me if I'm wrong, I do believe you have used that phrase more than 6 months ago. You said a handful of months.
I hope to be able to say it a year from now as well. The United States government is working diligently to extend that timeline.
Well, in our next...
Okay. Well, that's unclear, obviously, what that means. That could include things like hacking and other forms of sort of like subterfuge, which I'm sure they're engaging in to delay the progress of the North Korean program.
It's always worrisome when they like talk about that so flippantly, though, because it puts up like the 24 style clock. Like maybe we should get in there and do something.
Well, these people love that,
right? Yeah, no, that's.
I mean, this is their whole notion, and this whole. I mean, look, the bottom line is that what Fox News and other places that were bitching, and John McCain and everybody else that were whining about Obama and whining about leading from behind, all they meant, because let's be real, Obama had on one area this incredibly courageous, successful negotiation with Iran, then basically just some sort of greater stability with traditional allies, and then this pivot to Asia, which basically was things like TPP and trade, and then in other areas, a modified and more restricted, but in fact in other ways codified and advanced form of fighting the Bush wars with much more significant reliance on things like drones and also groups like JSOC, right? So what that means in practice is that you don't have much to pivot on other than we should kill far more civilians, we should have far more kinetic activity, these small kind of lawyerly interventions should be stripped back, and then the rest of it is all just posturing. Talk tough. Make a face. And then really what some of them are pushing for is like, let's have some more absolutely catastrophic wars, which would kill millions more people and throw the globe into chaos. You know, there wasn't actually a position to attack Obama from the left. I mean, from the right on foreign policy, unless it was all just demented, crazy stuff, which is all they have. You're calling from a 266 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from? (266). Are you there? You're calling from Skype. Is that? Are you here? Going on. Yeah, you there?
Hi, there. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, this is Tim in Canada.
Can't hear you too good. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yep. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Go ahead, man.
Oh, hi. It's Tim from Canada.
Hey, Tim.
Sorry, I'm calling from a Skype, not my usual area code.
No problem. What's
I didn't
going
realize. So, hi. Yeah, I wanted to call because you're hosting today, actually, in particular, because I wanted to thank you for having Dick Hoffman on your show and also going on his show in the future.
Okay.
He mentioned it recently.
Yep. Good guy.
So
great guy. Does a great
job. Yeah, he's going through a hard time right now, and I feel like it helps him out a lot. The fact that you're going on his show.
Okay.
He's can't work, and he has to make money off YouTube and Patreon and his podcast. So again, thank you for that.
Yeah,
anyway,
I respect his work a lot. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's great. Followed him for years. He's actually a personal friend as well.
Cool.
I wanted to talk to you about basically the whole chain migration thing again that you and Dave talked about today. I see it like
me and Corey,
even happening in other
Corey
countries.
and I.
Oh, Corey, sorry.
Yep.
Sorry, Corey and you. Yeah.
And I wouldn't. Let's not use that term. Let's not talk about chain migration. Yes,
yeah, sorry.
Family. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm seeing it everywhere though. So I know I mentioned it before, but it's kind of concerning that everybody in the media, CNN, and everyone is using it now.
Yeah, that's how they do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I thought that you might have a guest on that might talk about the history of the Republicans trying to do stuff like that in the past, like where they would try to change the conversation and use a different term over the previous, going from like an innocuous term to a more, I guess, racist term. I don't know if you can find
just in general. Yeah, I could look for that. Might be worth looking into. I could look into this. I mean, I think language matters a lot, but in other ways, I think there was definitely a period of time where people on the liberal side got way too lost in that. That if you could just kind of find the magic counter words, we can neutralize. Like, I think a lot of people bought into that too much on both sides. But at the same time, I mean, you know, framing and pitching and stuff does matter. And Republicans certainly historically did a better job of that. Although on that just kind of pure marketing level, I mean, the Obama people were effective, very effective.
It goes back to like the usual non-pushback from the Democrats, maybe like the last 20 years or so.
Yeah.
They seem not to push back hard enough.
Yeah.
Obama as well.
You got anything else, man?
Thing,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. What would you say, if at all, is the real world effect of the alt-right YouTubers like, you know, Baked Alaska or Sargon and people like that?
I don't know. I don't know how big an effect it is. I mean, I think it has some... I mean, I think the world now in some ways... this sounds like some type of like internet marketing book. I think, you know, it might be a relatively marginal effect, but a lot of battles are won in the marginal effect right now. So what I mean by that is I think that, you know, various kind of like YouTubers are part of a larger ecosystem, which is a problem. But of course, they're not, you know, they're not the Koch brothers. They're not the Mercers. They're not like real serious sites of power and influence. But on the other hand, I think that they have come up with a really appealing sales pitch to a certain type of, you know, mostly young white guys. And that has a distorting effect on politics. And I think, unfortunately, and I think Angela Nagel really nails this, that this sort of political juxtaposition of sort of like, you know, a certain type of presentation of left politics, which is all seems to be all, you know, only just sort of concerned about, you know, that comedy's not funny and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then on the right, this, you know, sense of aggrievement and distortion outside of like real material concerns and, you know, sophistication and solidarity. I think that they have an angle there. I think what's interesting now is that with the emergence of stuff like, you know, Chapo, Struggle Session, Dead Pundits, you know, My Show, and other things along those lines, if there's something that is, you know, a left that is more like actually more radical, but more grounded in like, you know, certain types of like real day in and day out concerns as regards to class, race, and so on and so forth, but isn't sort of just centered in kind of like fighting small cultural battles and stuff, but as a kind of much broader critique and concern for really overturning things, then to me it becomes a much more, you know, interesting fight. And I think we could pick off some people away from the sort of poison of that Sargon kind of silliness. But I think, you know, people who just are already pretty deeply resentful and motivated by misogyny, as an example, and resentment, and don't want to think about anything, that stuff will always have a strong appeal to them. But now it's interesting when there's a, you know, there isn't just that sort of like, you know, sort of basic battle going on. The terrain's a little bit more sophisticated and there's more options. So we'll see how that plays out.
I guess,
yeah, that's my thought on it.
I find that they're kind of like what was his name? Richard Spencer said that they're kind of good entry level people to go into further into like more of his sphere of.
Well, I think the people who are serious, who get into it, are serious. Yeah, I think, not to cut you off, but I think that yes, I think that I think some people, I think all of that stuff is Dave Rubin, Sargon, all of that trash is absolutely a gateway drug for that stuff, but it could just as easily be I think there's other people that were like, yeah, I used to watch that dumb guy's videos, and then I like read a book, or I went outside. You know what I mean? Or I realized that like my student debt is far more of an impingement on my life than like freaking out about Muslims. You know? And then I think, yes, I think for other people, they're like, well, it seems like all of these videos basically boil down to, you know, Muslims, girls, or black people or whatever are ruining my ability to get laid and play the video games I want. Why don't I look for somebody like Spencer who actually presents a much more kind of fully fleshed out fascistic worldview? Yeah, I think that's true. But I think the question in terms of picking people off and not getting them down that road is in the type of content, some of the more of the type of content that's emerging now, you know, that could sort of basically persuade impressionable young people who could be impressed upon. Appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much.
Sure, yeah. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks. All right. Speaking of which, Alex Jones, this is a pretty great clip. Alex Jones, we got to get to this. Alex Jones, of course, was all over the Women's March, which took place all across the country this past weekend. This is the March to Life, too. This was also what?
March for Life.
There was a March for Life.
Yeah.
There was also an anti-abortion, anti-women's reproductive freedom rally in Washington. So Alex Jones has clearly been, and we've played a lot of clips where he's still finding his footing in a Trump is president. What's my marketing angle? And he's kind of flirted with, well, maybe Trump is secretly Illuminati himself, and I'm going to need to flip. But Trump's core group of cultists and supporters, like, they're not going anywhere. And that's obviously a lot of his viewership. So he can't really turn on Trump. So then he needs to find other angles. That's why he's bringing out the sort of getting really weird, getting a little Shylock with the Brian Stelter thing. And
well, and you also know he must have part of his audience that thinks like, wait, what the hell have we sold out? Like, I'm not, maybe they don't trust Trump.
There might be like 10. Yeah, I think you could be right. There could be like a little chunk of the original. If you've hung on with Alex since the Austin public access days, you're probably like, wait a second. Maybe I thought we're supposed to be.
Our guy couldn't get in charge with everything that you've said.
Yeah, how could that happen? Because of like the goblin rituals or whatever. So, and clearly, we'll see again at the end of this clip, it seems like at least subconsciously that Alex Jones might be very drawn to the idea of a certain really extreme public event happening, is how I'll put it. It seems to be a running theme. But whatever that small group of his audience was that was dubious, I think he's confirming to the vast majority that, he flirted with a theme in season 2 of 2018 episode of Alex Jones where Donald Trump becomes evil. Yeah, we've workshopped that, done some polls. It's not going to happen. He's actually great.
Let me tell you, their final thing is abortion. It's their whole cult, their whole system.
It's true.
And when you go after that like he's doing, there's no way he's with the Illuminati. There's no way he's with this system. There is no way, and he'd be doing this. Zero. And, of course, my gut tells me that, too. And the churches, their gut tells them that. The real churches. That's why he liked hot women when he's, or most of that's made up. Whatever.
Oh,
David,
sleeping with
had his
porn
best friend
stars.
killed so he could have his wife. He repented of it later. He did it out of the flesh. He wasn't inherently evil. Trump hasn't done 1/100th what King David, a man after God's own heart, the prototype of Christ, did.
That's exactly right.
But what you judge a man by is the fruits and by the man's enemies. And by his fruits and by his enemies, this man, so many Christians have said, predestined to win, can't be stopped, all this stuff. They feel it in the spirit. And I'm kind of like, come on, let's not be that optimistic. And now, they're going to try to kill him. We already know that. They're like demons crawling around on their bellies right now, or the pigs running over the edge of the cliff when, Christ tells Legion, not the name of the demon, but we are Legion, out of him, and the demons run into the pigs, and they run off the edge of a cliff. That's what these people are doing, the Democrats, the globalists, all of them, and then they're slaves.
I'm not a legion of a pig. I'm Chuck Schumer. I will never cease to enjoy the unbelievable mismatch between, like, if the Democrats were a fifth of what these people freaked out they were, we would be in such better shape as a country. Like a bunch of like ruthless socialist abortionists that were out to stop at nothing to destroy Republicans. These guys were going to like let them roll them on DACA. They can't do anything. And in these people's fantasy lives, the Democrats are just like, you know, all strap up, no backup. It's amazing. I wish, buddy.
Right? Yeah.
I wish they were demons on their bellies.
It's like a weird projection thing, too, because when I watch this, I just think, oh, he must know how important that abortion vote that by like white people in the middle of the country that don't pay attention to anything else besides like where viability is at scientifically this week.
Oh, no doubt.
Like, he knows how important that is electorally for them because that drives a lot of people to the polls.
But I also like that, like, okay, I've heard you. Trump is great. I won't flirt with him, but we did the viewer survey. He is definitely not in the Illuminati. I saw my gut, the viewer survey, the poll came in clear. He is a patriot. Oh, and by the way, they're totally going to try to kill him. How many I get uncomfortable with that shit. How many segments?
How many times is he?
How many segments does
he float the possibility?
How many's going to float the possibility of like certain attempts?
I mean, what's the downside for him? If he's right,
oh, dude,
he's
it's all upside.
golden forever.
Oh, all
yeah, that's like writing your own lottery tickets that might get cashed.
Just putting the number in here. So if it happens, I'm not saying I want it to happen. Not saying it. Well, I am saying it will happen. I actually am. A lot of balls on that guy.
Unless you can outsmart him.
Can you imagine Amy Goodman being like, and there definitely will be an assassination attempt on Barack Obama. It's going to happen. Joining us now is Shuti Ahmed to explain why they absolutely are going to try to assassinate Barack Obama. I'm Amy Goodman. I don't know. Do we have the story? Apparently, there's a report that Donald Trump is known, and actually it's in the context of essentially just a continuation. We don't even talk about this, of course, that we're still at war in Afghanistan. And another thing for certain denizens of the dumb left who are like, he might be more of an isolationist than Hillary Clinton. Or a certain candidate for president whose husband, I'm sure at this time of year, is being like, honey, don't you want to start to get ready for 2020? Being like, I don't want to choose between a lethal threat and a more lethal and a lethal threat. I wish I could do a Jill Stein impression. But there was the idea that somehow Trump might pull back from military engagement, which was...
I don't like dumb wars.
Yeah, sure. That was, I mean, some of the things that people wrote, like nothing anybody said about Hillary Clinton being a warmonger should they be embarrassed about or regret, because it's all true. But anything that people said, speculating, including some very smart people, about Donald Trump, like that he was going to be in an Oval Office meeting and stare and be like, no, General.
I don't think we need the mother of all bombs.
We don't need the mother of all bombs. We need that money at home because there's an opioid epidemic. Like, if you even entertain that as like the 10th of a possibility, I'm going to try to think of this in a more mature way to say. You should seriously self-assess your analytic abilities. That's the diplomatic way that I could put this.
I mean, when you heard him say we were going to take the oil, we were going to...
Yeah, I would think that when you're looking at Donald Trump and reflecting on him as a person and who controls the entire apparatus of the Republican Party, and that he has no institutional knowledge, no sophistication, and is a narcissistic moron, clearly much more curious about his own self-advancement than anything else, what part of the message you think is going to stick when he's in office? The, I like dumb wars, or the, let's bomb the shit out of them and take their oil message.
If Trump was president during the Cuban Missile Crisis, none of us would be here right now.
Exactly. But there would be somebody like during like while the bomb was hitting, they'd be like, well, you know, Kennedy campaigned on the missile gap, so I don't vote in fear. There are up to 1,000 more troops that could be headed to Afghanistan this spring. And this happens in the context where apparently Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is a infinitely more, intelligent, self-made, and competent version of Trump, but very much in the Trump mode of far-right, neo-populist, neo-fascist, bigot leader, apparently told Trump in a White House meeting something to the effect of, no country has done so much more for another country and gotten so little in return, which is an interesting way of talking about what the United States has done for Afghanistan, quote unquote. Killed a lot of people there, supported some very effective heroin trafficking rings there, and that really is what this is at this point. Afghanistan is in many ways a giant proxy for a heroin route trafficking war. But what Trump has apparently done is taken to impersonating Modi to make the point, and he apparently does an Indian accent and goes, no country has done so much more for another and gotten so little in return. So let's do like a beaky bar, so much more for another country. You know what Modi said? And you should see the guy. He's just like, you have not done more for the country and done too much in return. Well, the way it reported is it seems like a friendly impression. Like it's like that's my buddy Modi.
Just razzing him.
Just razzing him. That's, look at a poo with the foreign policy instincts over there. Yeah, we'll still send the troops.
Trump, Sarkar. Abiki Bar, Trump, Sarkar.
And again, please. This was Trump's India ad that ran a couple weeks before he defeated Hillary Clinton. Let that all sink in, everybody.
Abiki Bar, Trump, Sarkar.
I used to listen to that every morning when I woke up to get myself pumped for the day.
That's my ringtone.
That would be such a good ringtone.
For the place I order Indian food from.
That's a great... That's the type of joke that might make Trump actually laugh. That's an, oh my God, dog, Hillary Clinton, same thing. He said a Biki Bar's Indian on his ringtone. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Grill bar.
A Biki Bar, Chana Sak Bar.
And this comes just as like a little nugget within the Washington Post headline that we're going to be sending up 2,000 more troops to Afghanistan this spring.
That is where we are. I really want to say, like, the only reason if people who made some type of dumb argument, like, had kind of just, like, there's plenty of people who've sort of checked out from it and been like, look, I had every reason for not liking Hillary Clinton and resisting corporate Democrats is all, besides the conspiracy theories, they're basically all 100% right. And some people have been like, yes, I get the distinction now, right? So I'm not, unfortunately we called it right. Unfortunately, I called it right. I wish I was wrong. But there are people out there still doing these fucking arguments. And just listening to like one piece on ICE policies alone, not making you shut up, let alone the foreign policy stuff. Because that actually really was an area where people legitimately were writing like think pieces on like, this is going to be an isolationist foreign policy. I mean, it's just, could you get more structurally or even just personally delusional about what's obviously going to happen with a person? Matt always tells me, in order to decompress me when I'm hard at work on a prep, is he finds me a sassy Trump.
Decompress, hard at work? Oh, wanky.
Let's check in. These are the latest two, a couple of recent sassy Trumps by Peter Cervanowitz.
Well, let's put it this way. There is absolutely no collusion. That has been proven. When you look at the committees, whether it's the Senate or the House, everybody but my worst enemies. They walk out, they say, there is no collusion, but we'll continue to look. They're spending millions and millions of dollars. There is absolutely no collusion. I didn't make a phone call to Russia. I have nothing to do with Russia, and everybody knows it. That was a Democrat hoax. It was an excuse for losing the election. And it should have never been this way, where they spend all these millions of dollars. So now, even the Democrats admit there's no collusion. There is no collusion. That's it. And we got to get back to running the country. What we have found, and what they have found, after looking at this really scam, is they found tremendous, whatever you want to call it, you're going to have to make up your own determination. But they found tremendous things on the other side. When you look at the Hillary Clinton investigation, it was, I've been saying it for a long time. That was a rigged system, folks.
Okay, that's Sassy Trump on collusion. And now we have Sassy Trump singing the national anthem. And this really, this is just the essence of every single thing. Trump's body should be just assumed by Sassy Trump. This is him.
Broad stripes, bright stripe. Red glare, the bombs bursting in air. The flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, land of the free and the home of the brave.
Jesus Christ. Down to the fact that he's like absentmindedly humming along until he gets to the bomb part where it's exciting. Bursting in air. Jesus Christ. That guy's a genius.
Maybe there's also video of Obama doing that exact same thing where he half-mouths the fun parts of the special.
And the bombs bursting in air. Holla! World star. About to pull that bitch's weave off. Oh!
We make fun of people like Joe Scarborough and things like that for just the way that their brains have been completely infected by this presidency and just their entire worldview being shocked. But the radius blast of this man is going to go to all of us.
It's affecting a lot of us.
Watching this guy, I'm like, I'm never not going to remember this the rest of my life.
Yeah. Just gonna be like, if we survive as a species, they'll be like, and then he stared at the sun.
We should have known that was the bad sun.
Right. Well, he was like, nope, I have opposition defiance disorder.
Imagine remembering, like, we get through like a nuclear winter and every society's like the road, and you're thinking, well, when it was still going well, Trump half-mouthed the Star-Spangled Banner at a Saints game. I'm enjoying myself.
I'm having a great time. Actually, that's the thing, is he's not. That's what's like so extraordinary about all of this. Like, and it's all said and done, the guy's clearly like in a miserable emotional case. So even for all of the damage and stress, this like old putting brained bastard is upset that fucking some hack like Maggie Hagerman won't compare him to like Teddy Roosevelt. Like that's like the great thing is like ICE is terrorizing people. Joe Scarborough is writing moronic songs. The globe is completely out of control. We were already at a crisis point. We've been accelerated like 20 years ahead. and everybody is hanging on a narcissist's every word and gesture. And his big thing is like, what are we going to do to get Maggie Haberman to say that I'm doing a great job? And he's like the last person that doesn't even get that, like, Maggie Haberman sucks. Like, he doesn't just... Oh, it's amazing. Burberry Batando. Michael, what do you think about this weekend's Manning controversy? Realer or fake than $50 Yeezys? Peace. I like the question framing. Well, I mean, it's not fake. She was at this event, right? She was at, and we have sound from it. What was this thing called again?
Night of Freedom, right?
The Night of Freedom with Mike Cernovich, MikeCernovich.com. Mike Cernovich, MikeCernovich.com. The truly, deeply terrifying, creepy, weirdo Stefan Amaliu. Some asshole that I've definitely never seen or heard of, and I don't... What? I don't care to research it. That's fine. And then Gavin McInnes. I see why Gavin McInnes hangs out with these people, because in this room, Gavin McInnes is by far the most normal and charismatic person. Which is saying like less than nothing. It's like Gavin's like a guy who's like, Gavin's like a sort of like college student who can barely throw a ball, who like is trying to like sneak his way on a peewee team. So, yeah, I mean, Chelsea Manning was at this event with all of these alt-right people.
She's saying she crashed it.
She's saying she crashed it. This picture looks, you know, otherwise. But, I mean, look, here's my bottom line. I've criticized, like, Chelsea Manning's first ad that she released was terrible. But, like, you know, I don't know, man. I'm going to cut somebody who exposed war crimes and was tortured a lot more slack. So some people who are jumping all over her are some of the worst, you know, actors anyways, and they want to delegitimize her. They don't care about what she exposed or what she's been through. And I'll just caution, look, on the other hand, I'm not a hero worship person. So bad ad.
And just because she did something heroic doesn't mean that her politics are good.
Exactly. There's a figure whose name I can't remember, but I mean, there were some people who did some incredibly heroic political actions to bring down the Soviet Union and were involved in solidarity movement in the 80s, okay? And some of them, when they got into power, embraced, like, you know, some of them were left, you know, and wanted human rights and openness and so on. And some of them, and that was, in fact, the stated mission of things like solidarity, but some of them became anti-Semitic. Some of them moved far to the right. So I'm not going to jump on her. I'm not going to embrace the bad faith attacks of hashtag resistance. And I also would say people aren't static either. And I'm not liking this. Like, the Chelsea Manning for Senate campaign is not off to a great start from either a practical, how do you actually run an insurgency and get rid of a stale, mediocre Democrat, because the ad was terrible and just sort of narcissistic nonsense, and crashing this event, yeah, looks terrible. So, and once again, take aside the ethics of it. What strategy is screaming for in a Democratic primary disproportionately of civil servants and government-connected contractors and people who will be voting in a Maryland Democratic primary, not to mention general election, and also many people of color? I'm going to go kind of do a happy pose at a alt-right conference in New York City. I mean, it's fucking stupid. Sorry. And she... almost none of us have done what she has done in terms of a contribution, and almost none of us have faced the consequences that she faced. And I find a lot of the attacks on her to be sanctimonious and disgusting. I'm also not going to run interference on her into perpetuity and not say when she does something stupid. And that was stupid. Now, speaking of stupid, here is just a little highlight reel that I believe our friend Nathan Bernard, who's a great guy on Twitter, who's done a lot of work to expose people like Mike Cernovich, Cernovich.com. Apparently, the attendees to this event paid $100 to get in to see these four freaks. And this is Gavin, Mike Cernovich, Stefan Mileniu, some other idiot who's talking about pedophilia that none of us have recognized or heard of and did not care to find out his name. Check it out.
There's pedophiles on Twitter, but
it means you're not an outright socialist. It means you don't believe that pedophilia should become legal and that people should be able to eliminate the age of consent so they can molest children.
Amen to that, bro. I might be really out on a limb in terms of my socialism. I'm definitely a self-identified democratic socialist. I totally don't think pedophilia should be legal. I don't know if this is going to get me kicked out of social networks, banned from any involvement in the next Bernie campaign if he runs for president, but I'm just going to go out on a limb. Totally don't think pedophilia should be legal.
Children, which is a major agenda for the media.
I think we start thinking that a random person is thinking that like a pedophile should have rights, when in reality most people want to, put a bullet in their heads. You know what I'm saying? Clap for me!
Don't clap.
Clap for me!
That's Owen Benjamin.
We are the champions, my friends.
Oh, God. So just a sad, bizarre group of people. And at the end there, the guy's begging for a clap. Gavin gives him a sort of a comedy clap. Then Stefan Milieu does a horrible rendition of Queen. And Weird Mike is on his phone.
Yeah, like I said, that was Owen Benjamin, who is, I've never heard of him still. Why Didn't They Laugh Patreon.
It didn't sound that funny. Like we should, because even if you're like, yeah, pedophiles should be shot. Okay, I agree. I don't, where's the comedy?
I'm guessing the implicit question in the Why Didn't They Laugh podcast name is, oh, I do some off-color jokes sometime, and people don't laugh at them because they think they're offensive, but probably just because you have, no sense of comedic timing.
Yeah, dude, because you're not funny. You're not funny. Every idiot has convinced themselves that they're Dave Chappelle or Lenny Bruce.
He was engaged to Christina Ricci at some point.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty crazy.
Ricci? Oh, the actress? Yeah. Oh, that's weird. Not good. Bad move, Christina. Also, look, I'm not saying anything, but if you put those guys in a lineup and said, point out who you think might be, it's a creepy looking guy.
You know who wasn't there?
Wyatt
Koch was not there, which was why I thought it was fake to begin with. There's no way Wyatt Koch was going to show up for that. I'm not sure where.
I think Wyatt Koch is too transgressive for politics. He's too much of a rebel. Apparently, one attender was punched in the face by a guy from Antifa.
Nice.
That's pretty funny. I am totally open to strategic critiques of Antifa and whether or not we're overinflating the importance of these people. But I am totally not open to moral critiques of Antifa.
It makes us look weak, which, by the way, we no longer are, believe me.
Exactly. Right. It's so weird. That sort of counter snowflake argument that people love, that a certain type of in the sort of Sam Harris zone love to sort of get on. Which is not to say, look, there's parts of the, there's every type of stupidity masking itself under every type of ideology online. But that particular argument, that a certain type of free and open exchange of ideas has about Antifa is just it's just mind-boggling.
I also don't think if people get used to Nazis getting punched, that's going to make them want to be a Nazi. I don't buy that that's actually true. I think it has the opposite effect.
Right. Yeah,
how much do I really want an ethno-state, a term that I learned on YouTube 2 years ago?
Right. Maybe I'd prefer to be a dick on 4chan versus get my nose crushed.
I'll stick to Gamergate.
Yeah, I'll stick. Right, exactly. Now again, there's people like Adam Proctor who have an interesting, again, critique of overinflation, stuff like that. I'm totally receptive to those critiques, but if you're actually more the descending order of what. And by the way, if you're upset about people Nazis being punched, then you should be a pacifist. you should have like a committed, systemic, moral opposition to violence, which I actually respect.
Like non-violent, yeah, I totally dig.
Which I totally respect if that's really your position. But it's pretty. The chutzpah levels are mind blowing of somebody who would write some sort of convoluted justification of any number of foreign policy crimes. I can't deal with some like fucking, dickbag getting hit in the face because they're advocating for genocide. Get the fuck out of here. Mike Pence was in Jerusalem, where he received a hero's welcome. Of course, this Trump administration is catering to the every whim, wish, and desire of the Israeli apartheid government. And, what's interesting in Israel is that there is a party, the Joint List, which represents not only Arab Israelis, but also, Jewish Israelis that are still committed to a notion of democracy, open society, and civil rights. And they have a presence in parliament. And they walked out when Pence addressed the Israeli Knesset to protest the Trump administration's moves to solidify Israeli apartheid. They were, met with hostility, and the rest of the parliament, Knesset, stood up to cheer for Pence. Pence is a dangerous man with a messianic vision that includes the destruction of the entire region. Ayman Odeh, the chairman of the Joint Arab List, grouping of 4 Arab-dominated parties that hold 13 of the Knesset's 120 seats. He said Pence came as an emissary for Trump, whom he called a political pyromaniac, a racist, and a misogynist. All true.
Just a note on that Chelsea Manning picture. I'm told that was actually an older picture from a different event.
Okay.
So,
well, then, if that's an older picture from a different event, she still shouldn't be with those people, but it's a good reason to. And again, I say that really advisedly. Like, I'm not a blacklister, and you shouldn't talk to this person or that person. But Cassandra Fairbanks, look, you're the enemy. Yeah. If you are not a bit more conservative or whatever, if you are an advocate of the alt-right, you are the enemy. Period. You are not part of a humane global politics. And anybody, and obviously, again, Chelsea Manning, who's taken significant personal risk to expose U.S. foreign policy. She's the reason we saw the collateral murder video in Iraq. And then she was tortured and imprisoned for it. I mean, she should know that. But again, look, no one would be more pleased than me if that became a real Senate campaign about foreign policy, about transparency, about U.S. foreign policy abuses, even about her own treatment, the treatment of whistleblowers writ large. Awesome. But a little bit of a rocky start.
It's similar to, like, remember those pictures surface of Donna Brazile at like a right-wing conference?
Right.
Like it doesn't mean you disregard everything that Donna Brazile said about the DNC, something, but it sticks in your mind.
It sticks in your mind, and I think it's a balance, because I do see, I see a certain tendency that people are always rushing all over the place to always disavow people, and this person needs to be excluded, and this person, because this person said that, or this person was blah, blah, blah. And look, ultimately, that's just not effective politics. And we're going to need to figure out how to make compromises and figure out and disaggregate all the time. I think actually partially so that when we do need to make a call like that person's, an enemy politically, it comes from a real place and not just like a knee-jerk perfectionistic reaction. And there's no doubt that any type of substantive association, support, or intermingling with the alt-right is enemy, period. But I agree. Like, look, if it's like shared a stage with to debate or whatever. You know, there can be nuances to it. And I will obviously cut her more slack. You're calling from 518 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hello?
Yep. You're calling from a 518 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm Rick. I'm calling from the Netherlands.
I cannot hear you very well. Hello? Why don't you try back again, man? I'm sorry. I just can't get you good. You're calling from a 937 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Andrew from Ohio.
Hey, Andrew.
First of all, Alex Jones is like 2 degrees away from turning into the stone floating head from Zardoz. That was...
I don't know what that is, but I buy it.
Okay. The other... I was listening to when you were talking with Corey Pein.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to think of how, like, you would even explain, like, the government shutdown as a result of what's going on with the political process to somebody who, I don't know, who just has kind of a centrist-y vibe to them, where they care more about the process than they do about the policy.
Right.
It made me think of the guest you had last year, who wrote the book about Nazi race science and how it was inspired by American race law in a lot of ways.
Yep.
And that they went by the book. And that's what they did. They went by the process.
Right.
And if the book wasn't sufficient, then they rewrote the book.
Well, and this is why it's called Hitler's American Model, United States and the Making of Nazi Race Law by, I don't know the author's names, James Q. Whitman. Sorry, keep going.
Right. And I don't know, like, I guess my main thought was just, for people who, I don't know, like the cliche about, well, first they came for the communists and then for the Jews, and I wasn't any one of those things. Like, I don't know. Like, it already exists. So, and I'm sure they've heard that before. But, like,
well, I mean, the reality is that this isn't...
I feel like you're trying to explain...
Yeah.
Trying to explain it to them in a way like, what's... My thing was, because I know people who have talked about stuff like this, and you kind of have to say, like, well, what's the point of even having, like, a government that runs if we let, like, Tom Cotton and Stephen Miller decide who gets to come into the country? And at that point, like, if people don't really understand that, then I don't know what to do.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that are not going to, I mean, you know, the reality is that, yes, it takes some, in my view, to structurally understand immigration, it takes some humanitarian impulse. And there's a lot of people that have been really conditioned to elevate process and second-order things over first-order things. I mean, this is even a broader thing I've been looking into. You know, this is a bigger conversation, but one of the real problems with even just sort of conceptually with human rights and human rights law generally is that if you establish things in legal orders, but you don't have, like, actual political boundaries around them, then it just becomes about a sense of process that isn't, like, grounded in reality and can be used and discarded depending on basically what the power context is. So,
well, and that's kind of the weird thing about centrism anyway, is that like the very idea of it is that it's between both sides, and so whatever comes out, I guess, is just fine.
Well, we see the difference in, you know, the difference, I guess, in centrists is that there's some people who would, you know, like, the reality is in a global political context, Bernie Sanders is a centrist, right? Like, by any sane measure of politics, Bernie Sanders is a centrist. But
the American definition.
In our American definition, he's, you know, well to the left because the ball has been pushed so far. I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. If people don't, you know, if they don't have a kind of humane instinct on immigration, then maybe that's not the area to focus with them on. I mean,
maybe get them to meet, like, Stephen Miller or Chris Kobach or somebody like that, and, like, have a drink with him or something.
I'm sure if Stephen Miller toured the country, we could flip America to 80% pro-immigration Democrat.
Stop kicking them off your shows.
Yeah, take care, man. You were calling from an 850 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Ida.
Hey,
I'm from Florida.
Hey, Ida, what's going on?
Hi. I'm so glad I got through to you. I've been trying to get through the mainstream media, and it's like trying to butt your head a brick wall. Can't get through to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, here you can definitely get through to us.
All right. I'm so excited. I'm going to try to contain myself. But what it is Trump has ADD. Everybody keeps saying, oh, it's dementia, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. It's ADD.
Yep.
That's why he has problems with motivation, self-control, organization. You said ODD earlier, oppositional defiance. Guess what? Like 99.9% of everybody who has ODD is ADD.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of people with ADD are also like great and very creative and productive people. So, I mean, yeah, he probably does. Yes. He probably does have ADD among an endless number of other. I think there is some senility going on. He obviously has some type of serious personality disorders. I mean, we can add to the list, but he probably is ADD.
And ADD.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's a good point. You got anything else before we jump?
Well, I just wanted to say, yes, of course, ADD has nothing to do with intelligence. So there's people that say, oh, he's too dumb or he's too smart, whatever. That's.
I think he is dumb.
It has nothing to do with intelligence.
I think he's dumb. I don't think
he could be.
Yep.
He could be, but there's a reason that Kate Kelly named her book, You Mean I'm Not Stupid, Crazy, or Stupid, Lazy, or Crazy. So
well, he is stupid. One can be stupid, crazy, and lazy, and ADD. But I take your point. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. You're calling from a 403 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
This is Tom from Canada.
Hey, Tom, you're sound a little distant there, buddy.
Oh, sorry, man. Is that a little bit better there?
A little bit better. What's going on, man? What's on your mind?
Great. I just wanted to call and first thank you guys for doing the show. I'm a Patreon subscriber. I just really appreciate it. I get pretty down on a lot of these Trump craziness days, and you guys just help, keep it in focus and allow me to, vent a little bit. I just want to call and say I really appreciate you guys.
Oh, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
I was wondering, what are your guys' thoughts on, like, what Trump's going on with North Korea? Like, some days I'm thinking, like, he might just do something. Other days I'm like, he might just keep shooting his mouth off. It just feels like anything's possible in, the Trump era. Yeah,
I don't think that, to be honest with you, I think that, we live under a horrifying scenario of annihilation in any event. And obviously, he's made it, more dangerous. Like, obviously, the world is a much more dangerous place under him than under Obama, as an example. I don't think that he's just going to shoot one off for the sake of it. But, who knows? I mean, there's some degree of that's an issue where, if that's real, almost nothing else matters. And then on the other hand, there's almost no, obviously at some point we have to get serious about getting back to a disarmament agenda. But nothing like that is going to happen when any Republican, and most Democrats are in fact in control, let alone Trump.
This is another issue Democrats need to really have
I hear you on that. Totally agree.
Democrats have been terrible on this. So even Obama, yes, there were some reductions and so on with Russia, but he actually spent, I think over $1 trillion to upgrade the nuclear arsenal. So, this is not something that there's been any type of, actually, the last serious push on this was actually Reagan and Gorbachev seriously contemplated eliminating these weapons from the world in the 1980s in Reykjavik. And it's kind of a mind-blowing history. I think we're actually going to do an illicit history on that on TMBS.
Nice. That'd be great. I was thinking of subscribing to TMBS, but I'm contemplating between that and Waking Up by Sam Harris.
I hate you. I hate you so much. That is both.
Quick side question though, real quick, is I gotta ask, what is a good way to reach someone who's kind of on the Harris train?
It depends how deep they are in it.
But I would say pointing out the I don't know if you can hear me.
Like favorite person.
Sam Harris is their favorite person. They're gone in the cult.
Yeah.
But just plant the seed that Sam Harris never mentions history or politics, or economics. Like anybody can start to notice that.
Or
that's true. I actually spent a lot of time listening to him. Yes, that is true.
Yeah. So did he respond to that, or did he say that you were taking him out of context?
Oh no, I just don't dive into it just because I know it was like kind of like, oh, he's my favorite person. I write to him and stuff. I'm just like, I know that this is
that person's a fucking weirdo. I mean,
something you could just easily.
No, that's crazy. I don't understand. I mean, I think there's definitely people. There seems to be two lanes of people. Like there's some people who are like, hey, I was 16 and maybe I grew up in a religious household or something, and I read a Harris book and it helped me, drop religion or whatever, and that was helpful. And now I see that there's a ton of stuff he doesn't understand and a lot of stuff he misses, and he's, his ideas on politics and stuff are, pretty dumb, but I kind of appreciate him for certain things, and maybe even I enjoy his podcast or whatever. And then there's definitely other people that, he is a god to them, and he is a substitute for religion, and it's really bizarre. And I can't even get myself into the mindset, honestly, of even caring for, and this is going to sound dickish, but I literally mean this. Like, I don't have another, like, the idea that there is an individual person that you are not personally connected to, like isn't a friend or family, that you have anywhere near that level of like personal obsessive identification with and need to defend at all costs. I don't mean like, of course I defend people. Of course I respect and admire people. But like that fact that there are people, that they're writing to him like that, you put up a YouTube video and that there's going to be a handful of people who apparently like never sleep, have no lives, and they're just like out of context. That, whatever that mindset is, I cannot approach. I don't understand it. It's very weird to me.
Cool. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, man. Appreciate it. Have a good one. All right, let's read through some IMs. Seattle fan, I think the deal isn't bad for Dems. Senate likely to pass DACA fix next month. These will then...
Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Like, the fact that you could say that with that much confidence, given, like, every single thing about how this process works, is mind-blowing to me.
While conceding all ground on legal immigration.
Yeah.
And how we're going to make that work.
Yeah, and even the stupid wall thing. Like, whatever they put a compromise on, best case scenario, it's a bunch of wasted money on a militarized wall. And more likely than not, there's going to be some other things in there, like even staffing up deportation processes, which are going to be terrible. These then will pressure Ryan to take up the bill. That matters. Why? Like... You think Democrats have leverage? Paul Ryan has already said that he's not going to pass something through the House with Democratic votes on this. It's going to need to be a majority Republican passed bill. So just contemplate the reality of that. They're not going to pass a moderate DACA fix out of the Senate and the House. That's delusional. It's not going to happen. But the ball will have been advanced with Senate passage, and the D's will have split the Republicans by getting a 10 to 15 senators to vote with D's. Dude, I mean, that's just the type of analysis that I hear you, but that's like, you're looking at like maybe like half of a game inside a tennis match that is totally not going your way. And it totally could be that a lot of people will be hurt. It won't really be fixed. And Democrats could use it to their advantage in 2018. But I mean, that's not... I wish I shared your sort of optimism. And I mean, the notion that you think that Democrats have any persuasion over Paul Ryan in the House, I mean, that's just insane. There's no... Paul Ryan's job and the people who have power over him, first and foremost, are the most insane people in the House who have inflicted far more damage for far less than... What?
I'm the public face of plutocratic sociopathy in this country.
Yeah, I mean, what do you...
What's my job?
Yeah, I Exactly. That's kind of mind-bending. Okay. Jonathan Armistead. Michael, last week I wrote in to say that Nation of Islam Obama would congratulate Jamie for her rejection of capitalism. Yet he was having none of it. That's exactly right. One of my favorite books, goddamn right. One of my favorite books is Party Music. It covers how soul and funk musicians interact with the Black Panther Party. It says many Afrocentric artists and black nationalists disliked the Panthers because they had white names like Huey or Bobby and promoted democratic socialism and had Jewish lawyers. My question for Nation of Islam is this. Where does he stand on the old school Bay Area Panthers? Does he dislike them? Their brains were corroded by the white man's socialism. The white man can... Look, the devil can't escape his nature. Some devils wanted to have equal food in caves. Some devils wanted to concentrate all the food for themselves, but they're still inside the cave. Or is he grateful that they paved the way for the new Panthers? Now, the new Panthers are brave brothers. I love seeing what they do to fox anchors. I actually think I would look into Adolph Reed on this stuff because I think that there is a really big... There's a real misnomer about some black politics in the 60s and how it played out. And some of the things, currents, like Nation of Islam, that have a brand of being more radical because they were more like overtly anti-white, actually had a very limited and in some ways reactionary political agenda. And then people, whether they be the Black Panthers, with a radical socialist commitment fused with black liberation, or people like A. Philip Randolph with serious unionism and organizing, and MLK, in fact, and where Malcolm X became or got in some ways. Like, they got written off as being like soft, but actually they were radical proponents of both deep democratic enlargement and civil rights, which is ultimately what civil rights is about, and a broader socialist project, which had far more of a threat to a political order than, like, you know, I mean, you look at a Farrakhan speech, there's going to be a chunk of it that will be offend people and it'll be anti-Semitic and so on, but a lot of it sounds like just boilerplate Republican stuff. And there were a lot of Republicans over the years who actually would at least acknowledge that about Farrakhan. This is breaking news. Pennsylvania Supreme Court has struck down a congressional map and has ordered a new one in time for the 2018 election. So there's going to be a new and fairer map in 2018. It's a state ruling, so it can't get to POTUS. That's good news.
Unfair.
Totally unfair. Not right. Right. This is Cernovich, Mike, by the way. Every time I want to call in, my clients call me or I get on a conference call with them. I'll call soon. Dragon Slayer. So now not only does Dissident Peasant have a Patreon, but Raygon's Redirect podcast has a Patreon as well. Finally figured out why not all trust fund babies triggered Michael so much. When Kelly was still there, babies. Mark from New Jersey. Happy Michael Monday. I just wanted to say that while I supported the shutdown, Dems handled it poorly and it needed to end. Half were blaming Trump and Republicans, while some said DACA was worth the shutdown. And if it had continued, Republicans would frame it around Dems, dreamers, and make them the scapegoats. Feb 8th is a reasonable amount of time, but now Dems need to stand their ground. I mean, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I need to read more about it, but I've seen some people argue that maybe this sets them up if they really want to dig in next time. But I don't know.
I mean, I just don't. It just doesn't seem to be who they are. Hashtag agreed with everything said on Friday's show regarding my question on the anti-war movement. And I'm so stoked you all had Bernie. I'd like to expand on that if that's okay. I love Bernie, but it's still true that he voted in some way, shape, or form for every foreign intervention to U.S. has carried out since he arrived in Congress, even the Iraq War. That's not... Oh, he voted for the 1998 resolution to remove Saddam Hussein. I think that's a bit... And for every Iraq funding bill. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but I hear you. I love Corbyn, but he used terrorist attack Matt brought up to justify ending austerity to further fund police. We talk about transforming the right vocabulary of the right. The sad truth is U.S. Americans don't care about empire. How important do you think it is for people to get thinking about foreign policy? How will folks ever understand if they don't first understand that we're in an empire? We have to stop killing people. Well, I think, to be honest, even though I really sympathize with that viewpoint, I think that, like, I don't know, it's not going to come through that verbiage. Like, you know, I think that there's more receptivity than there was certainly after the terrorist attacks and war on terror began, of like wanting to scale back this incessant engagement with the rest of the world and, in fact, exposing all of the U.S. crimes abroad. Maggles, I know you might be sick of Chicago calls, but the attendance for the Women's March in Chicago increased from 250,000 in 2017 to 300,000 in 2018. That's a bigger point of pride than our hot dogs, pizza, and Italian beef sandwiches. Yeah, that's cool. Savvy Cass, something from last week. The P-tape is not too out of sorts with someone who says they're a germaphobe. Remember, Trump allegedly contracted those sex workers to urinate on a bed.
P-tape is totally real.
Yeah, the P-tape, I totally believe it. Trickle down Jesus. Here in Ontario, we recently got a minimum wage increase to $14 an hour, and the same BS from that Fox clip earlier are all over the place. Why are owners and investors so entitled to record profits over our workers entitled to a living wage? Because we don't have economic democracy, my friends, which is the end goal. All right, let me take at least one more call, and then we're going to race out of here. You're calling from a 702 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hey, my name is Luis. First-time caller. Actually, first time watching you guys live.
Hey, what's going on, Luis?
Remember that time when Bake Alaska and all those users got banned on Twitter?
Mm-hmm.
You know what's funny about that is they complain that their freedom of speech was being suppressed, but they don't realize that the forum has been bought out. And when the forum has been bought out, what does freedom of speech mean?
Well, I don't know what you mean.
You understand what I'm saying?
It's a private service. There isn't any guaranteed freedom of speech in a private service. But I think though that the answer for us, at least from my view, would not be, ha, you guys are screwed. It should be like, all right, you know what? A lot of these companies are functioning like private utilities. And and so let's have a conversation about starting to make massive internet companies and engines public utilities that can be equally accessed and actually have those rights afforded to it. I doubt that people like Bake Alaska could even be intelligent enough to understand that point.
Well, actually, in that video, he brings up it's kind of like a utility, right? So even they sort of
get it, but they don't understand the implications of it. But I'm not, I love to see them being, punished, but I'm not comfortable with us just being like, hey, it's a private forum, screw you, because I don't believe in that generally, right? Like, I think that that's dangerous. And I also think another thing missing from this debate is that the only reason that those guys stayed on the forum to begin with is not because of tech bro culture or whatever. It's because they drive traffic and they make money. So there is a very serious hesitation for a company that has to report quarterly earnings and has investors breathing down its neck to do anything to compromise profits, including remove people who, terrorize women and promote hate speech. So I think that's kind of the situation. Do you have anything else you wanted to add, man?
Yeah, I was going to say that's pretty much what the problem is just that, they say we have freedom of speech, but what happens if the forum is privatized? That's the problem that we're having.
No, I agree. I agree with you completely. Thanks for the call, man. You're calling from a 646 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Mike. How you doing? This is Gavin calling from Washington.
Hey, what's going on, Gavin?
Hey, man. I was wondering, what do you think? You guys did a piece on that guy, Stephen Klubik, a while back. He was complaining about the Democratic Party.
Oh,
going too far left.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Where are people like that going to go now? I mean, do you
Build
think that guy's going to remain in the party?
Oh, yeah. Build Roach. Keep it simple. I look like I should be an extra in Flashdance. I don't know where someone like that will go. My guess would be is that someone like that, I have no idea. If he sticks to his word and he can't deal with even kind of like the most modest ways of addressing inequality, he'll become a Republican.
But he'll be a Democrat for longer than we want those guys to be Democrats.
Yeah, I don't think there's any use in that guy. He's not helping.
Like when it looked like Hillary was going to win, I thought it was going to be like 10 years fighting against that guy as the Republicans were like a minor party.
Right. That's what I thought the battle was going to be. But I think that, like, you know, there were hedge fund guys that backed Obama. Then the Obama administration let Wall Street get away with everything. And then they were like, we're not going to support him anymore because he called us fat cats in 60 Minutes. You know, I mean, it's the same type of scumbag.
All right, thanks, man. One more question for you. How do you guys handle fellows, friends who are so far left that they're not even, because Bernie did, support Hillary at the end, that they're so betrayed that they're not even going to, support him or anyone affiliated with him now? I mean,
I wouldn't even grant the premise.
They have an argument?
I don't think that makes them far left. I think that makes them dumb about electoral politics.
Yeah, that makes them just moronic with regards to how the world works. Yeah, no, it's not far left at all. I guarantee you I'm more to the left than any of those people. But that just means that they're making it about themselves. They don't understand how politics works. And, I guess best case scenario, they could at least do something practical in terms of activism. But that's just an incredibly narcissistic, stupid position.
Yeah.
Appreciate the call, brother.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, man. I really apologize. I can't get to any more callers. None of you have been waiting that long. I'm sorry, though. I hate to do that. But we got to run. Kim. I know it looks like they were fucked as workers of the world, and to be real, we are. Regardless, every day is a grind, so you might as well grind for the well-being of us peasants while you're at it. Big man, Michael. Hi, Michael. How do you like Cory Booker's little outburst last week? Was that him beginning his run for 2020? Yep.
That was him in mid-stride.
Yeah, that was mid-stride, right?
Yeah, the Congressional Black Caucus hearing last winter, right after Trump got elected, was when he declared.
Yeah, I mean, and I remain deeply unimpressed. Lou in Vancouver, dear God, I've had enough of Scarborough singing after 10 seconds. Please, can you play one of those shitty Mark Stein tracks? Can you please play one of those shitty Mark Stein tracks to cleanse my palate? What is up with, like, these ridiculous people and delusions of grandeur about music?
So what happens when no one tells you no? You become president.
Jesus
and then you
Christ.
Destroy the world.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you have a salary that just leaves way too much extra. You're like, okay, let's just rent some studio space and get some session musicians and, bring...
Well, that's like the best case scenarios. Like, hopefully there were some, like, working musicians who were getting, like, fat fucking checks from Scarborough.
She wasn't looking at me. I wish she'd talk to me like that. Didn't care where I scratched or sat.
Okay, all right, come on, man, please. Jesus Christ,
You might need to put these guys in a music pyramid.
Yes. This is but the Stein stuff, like Scarborough stuff, is just, he's just a massive, like, he's just a toolbox who nobody says no to. The Stein stuff is more like, do we need to monitor him for being like a serial killer?
Yeah, there's something
just really, really deranged about this Stein stuff. Like, I want to have a search. I would, like, if you could specialize FISA courts violating people's civil liberties on flimsy evidence, I would target it at Mark Stein. I would be like, based off of this video, I would like a warrantless wiretap of everything involved with this guy. Because I think
people coming and going.
Yes, I want to know who he's involved with. I want to know all of his movements, because this is clearly a deeply, deeply deranged person.
You should not be able to be earnest throughout a taping of that, to where you can't tell if this I ta ta putty tat song is ironic or not. Like, it gives me chills. Actually.
It's very, very unsettling.
There's something, like, just so, like. I mean, and again, actually, by positive contrast to Scarborough, like, okay, Scarborough's just some, like, rich fat cat morning anchor. No one gets to say, no one says no, and he theoretically, within this totally ludicrous context, like, he can sort of sing and he can play the guitar, okay, and he wants to do, like, ridiculous saccharine songs because he's got, like, delusions about being Elvis Costello. Fair enough. But this guy is not even like, this guy's like, I'm a sort of 2-bit right-wing media hack. There's no way he has that level of yes man around him. And he's like, I am going to produce not only these terrifying, should be on a surveillance list songs, but music videos. And there's no part in the taping of the video. Like, there's not even any, like, just basic human self-awareness at any step in this journey. And it can't be, there's no way it's aided by as much yes-manery. Like, it's much worse than Scarborough, and there's no way he has as many yes men as Scarborough.
And yet somehow his videos have like VH1 quality production values. Like if you watch that,
that's what happens if you're on the right.
Yeah,
you could just literally get away with anything. That's what you could do. I could tell the Mercers, like, hey, I want to do another. That would be a great business. I'll be the hip Brooklyn racist guy, and in addition to funding my website and everything, I've always wanted to be a dancehall star, actually. So can you guys pay for my album? And they'd be like, yep. As long as you terrorize transgender kids on college campuses, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Here's a big check.
Hey, Wyatt, I've really been digging your shirts you're making. I know you got a show coming up in Brooklyn in a few months, and I've always wanted to be a vaporwave DJ.
Dude, it's so obvious. It's all there. Being conservative is the easiest job on the planet. It goes from like succeeding in media is really hard to like, if you're really just willing to be like a rock bottom scumbag and you can get yourself in front of the right scumbag family, you're good.
Yeah, even Bannon, who, you know, like whether or not he ends up with the Mercers again, he'll get dark money from somewhere.
He'll get dark. He's been interesting though. He's flamed out in a really unique way, but he'll figure it out.
Yeah,
he'll be back. Stillmatic intro. I sound like a broken men record, but it is what it is. Great interview. I'm worried about our debate on immigration. I've got a bad feeling they're going to cave like Democrats in the voting rights reversal and then perceive no significant pushback. Yeah, exactly. People have been nothing. People have been noting that I'm London-born or have Caribbean parents way more than ever, and it's creepy. Abuses have been happening for so long, it's like people have become numb. I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope you're wrong too, man. We're going to, you know, play whatever role we can play. Yeah, it is super creepy. I would say, like, just as a point in this context, don't like allow your curiosity to guide questions like that, because people are probably super anxious in this environment, you know? Like, even if you're being innocent, just be a little bit more circumspect about that kind of thing. Joe R., what happened to your notification through app? And what happened to Nate from Texas? I used to like his calls. I don't know the answer to either of those things. Nate from Texas joined the Bush administration, the Trump administration. Just kidding. Esha, I have ADHD and it didn't turn me into a racist moron. Yeah, fair enough. I don't think that was the point the caller was making, but I understand how that could have been misconstrued. Bullprog, how about Thurnovich's failed event this weekend? Well, we touched on. There's actually going to be more tomorrow.
We have to save some for Sam.
Yeah, Sam was like, I get a text at 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't use all the Gavin clips.
I don't even know really what he's referring to. Actually.
Yeah, it's just like, dude, I don't know. I didn't spend this weekend watching this miserable event. There's more Gavin clips and I need them. God damn it. Hello. Censor sweep. The picture you showed of Chelsea et al. Was a few months ago. Apparently, they went to an escape room. Yeah, I mean, look, some of the criticism still stands, but I'm gonna try to give her a lot of room because she's been through a hell of a lot and done a lot. Rutsticus. Should we assume Mike Pompeo's graphics for Trump are created in crayon? I think it's a totally fair assumption. Let's see. Okay, guys. Again, apologies. Just trying to figure out a last one. Oh, sure. This is a funny one because I'm in a salty mood. Matty Youth. What about Jill Stein's illustrious music career? Which globalist backed that? I think, to be fair, I think no globalist backed that. I think that Jill Stein has a decent discretionary income, and I think, actually, I would say better a pro-recycling rap album than another presidential run. I said it, and I meant it. We are back here live tomorrow, and of course live tomorrow 7 p.m. for TMBS. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want. but I know somehow I'm gonna get there.